this inflation genie's back in the bottle. And finally, you got the fact that, the chair has been very clear that 5 years of missing the target is really unacceptable. And I think the market is expecting to hear from him something clear about his framework, how he thinks about all of this, and how he, now it's his watch, is going to respond to it.
How about people that come in and argue that some of the problem areas of inflation have started to look better, like shelter or services, or even, I don't know, even wage pressure? Have you seen positive signs in some of that data?
Absolutely, there are positive signs of some of it, and as you point out, the last reading was a relatively positive surprise. But be careful, because coming in at slightly below 3 is not coming in at 2, and so these concepts of positive surprise, et cetera, are against the backdrop of inflation that is certainly running hot. Even if it's less hot than it had been before, doesn't mean that it's definitively on its way to 2% over the next probably 3 to 4 or 5 quarters. And I think that's the Fed's dilemma right now. Things are improving, but from a very bad base.
Yeah, we all like to live in interesting times, and the Warsh Fed is just for a lot of really interesting conversations that we've had, and arguments, family fights, which the chairman apparently likes. So I could ask you, I could ask you about whether you like the whole idea of less transparency, and you're on your own. And then yesterday it was fascinating to see the interplay between Treasury and the Fed and a financial reporter. Did you see the whole thing? You probably didn't like that.
I didn't love it.
I didn't like that as a reporter. Me, as not a journalist, sort of was tickled by the whole thing. What did you hear? I said me is not a
I like that.
But that's not a surprise to you. That's not a surprise to you. What do you make of all that, Roger?
I think 2 or 3 things. Clearly, the Fed needs to be clear, improve its communication. Certainly, some of the things they've done that portend the future are sort of confusing, so consider the dot plots, et cetera. On the other hand, the market does want some degree of transparency. It's called, the reaction function. How is the Fed likely to react? And I think Chair Warsh is going to eventually be forced to say a little more about the future than perhaps he wants to. On the back and forth between Fed and Treasury, the standard has been very, very clear, which is the Fed is responsible for monetary policy. Treasury definitely takes the lead on fiscal policy. The Fed tends not to comment. And generally, Treasury has not commented, at least in the last 3 or 4 administrations, on monetary policy. On dollar policy, which comes into play, frankly, the Treasury takes the lead, the Fed helps to implement. So I think the rules of the road are clear, but obviously reporters like to report, tit for tat, and what's exciting is disagreement, not agreement. So I think the Fed has really got to focus on its mandate. It's got to be clearer about transparency. Because the markets, I think, deserve and expect a certain degree of transparency, knowing there's not going to be, forward commitments, because the Fed and markets are all very data.
Hey, Roger, there was another story in the Wall Street Journal just this morning about Kevin Warsh and these conversations he's been having, or the President of the United States has been having with him, apparently routinely. Curious where you stand on that. I mean, it sounds like there have been periods of time where there have been conversations between the president and a Fed chair. It sounds like more recently that has not been the case. But from your perspective, how the markets read that?
You should, with the cover, you should point out that the article says we have no idea whether they talked about Fed policy. They talked about the Iran war. They talked about the economy. They talked about all the vibrant. And I thought about that immediately, and I know Kevin.
We've known Kevin.
I would use him as a resource for, and if the president's doing that, I'm like, fantastic.
No, but by the way, the reason I was asking him to contextualize it was because during the Clinton era, for example,
there was close.
There was lots of back and forth between Alan Greenspan and him.
But we don't know if this. We don't know what are you doing with rates.
We don't know what was going on. It's also hard to imagine that there's never a conversation that even touches on how they think that. I mean, all these conversations relate to each other.
But
Yeah, so look, let me, to answer your question, try to contextualize it. These conversations go on, they're quite frequent. The rules of the road are, let's talk about the economy. The president should be taking advice from someone as smart and insightful as the chair of the Fed, including obviously Kevin Warsh. So one shouldn't be surprised. One should recognize that historically there has been a degree of pressure applied. There are famous incidents when, the president has called in the chair to suggest a sort of move to monetary policy. That is clearly off limits. I think here it's a little riskier insofar as we know this president has been very clearly dismissive in some sense, certainly critical of Fed policy. And so, and Kevin Warsh needs to show, as he has, a strong degree of independence. So I think these conversations will go on. I think they're newsworthy in this context because of the history of this president clearly backing Fed. I can use that word.
Talking about newsworthy, Roger, before you go, I do want to get your sense of this big move inside of Google, Alphabet. I know you're on the board. I don't know how much you can say about it. But as we mentioned, Dennis, who I've known for many years, he really is the OG of all of this. And Jeff also, one of the great OGs. I know you got a bench there, but how are you thinking about it?
Well, what you said earlier is true, which is, I would prefer actually not to comment on it. I know that seems very sort of disappointing. As a board member, I am calm and comfortable with the leadership team that we have there. And these moves are part of sort of a natural progression, as they were talking about in the press release. So I'll just leave it at let the press release speak for itself. The good news is obviously, there's a deep bench, and I expect we will continue to do quite well in this space as it has for a long, long time.
In your survey, Roger, measure of CEO confidence. I mean, if you combine.
Hello, my name is DrPaulCottrell. We are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Thank you for joining. Please share the links and ask your social media to follow me so I can grow the channel. In addition, the market is open. So the S&P 500 is trading at 7,734. The rally that we've had recently is losing a little bit of steam. If you've been paying attention, I've been saying the year-end target is 7,800, and that as we are in the 7,600 to 7,800 range, take a little bit off of the table and put it in cash or cash equivalents, but still have a decent amount in equities. So what I did was I moved about 7% to 8% into cash, just kind of waiting it out. It's very possible that we see a drop in the S&P 500 this year or the beginning of first quarter next year to 7,200, 7,000, or 6,800. At those different price points would be perfect to add that cash that was put on hand to get a better dollar cost averaging. This is how you juice up the gains in your portfolio and beat the market when trading the market. So around 7%, 5 to 10%, somewhere in there, of putting cash on the sideline or cash equivalents like short-term CDs or whatever. So you can wait for that sell-off. Now, tech did rally. The short ETF for semiconductors is trading at 1174. It's trading on the low end. So the trading range for that is now around 1150 to about 1250. So right now, investors, institutional investors, and retail traders are moving into tech. But if you look at the business model for AI companies like OpenAI and Anthropic, how do they make money? How do they have net income? They have revenue, but they have expenses that are far outweighing the revenue. So there seems to be a little bit of a bubble here. Plus the circular financing, some issues with NVIDIA. So I would not be surprised if we see another down leg, and this is just a short-term relief rally. But I could be wrong. wrong, but I'm I think we need to be careful at the 7,800 range for the S&P 500. Now, VIX is low, it's at 15. We should be getting another spike in the VIX in about 4 weeks or so. So equities should be ticking upward with that low VIX index. The euro is trading at 115 and Japanese yen is trading at 157.98. Oil is trading at 76.13. Bitcoin is trading at 64,665, and natural gas is trading at 6.6. I'm sorry, natural gas is trading at 2.643. So oil WTI, that trading range is going to be anywhere from 70 to about where it's at right now, 76. If there's positive news coming from the Middle East, especially with the Strait of Hormuz. If it's negative, then we're going to start seeing that retesting that $80 barrel resistance level and probably surpass it and get to $81 or $82 a barrel. So right now we're at that mid-range between 70 to 79, and we're in the upper bound for short-term trading range. Now, what I've been noticing is oil doesn't want to go down much and oil doesn't want to go up much. Everyone's waiting for the news. I think we're going to have a failure in negotiations. Something's going to happen and oil's going to pop again. Natural gas, the trading range should be around 2.5 to about 2.7. Right now we're trading at 2.642. I'm shorting the natural gas, I'm shorting oil, but I also have a small hedge longing natural gas too. So that's what I'm doing. Now, the big news is Warsh, the Fed chair, seems as though he's been talking to the president about, policy. We don't really know what. That's maybe, how much does the Fed have independence? So Warsh is going to have to explain himself in the next few press cycles that he has. And there's some news out on Scott Bessent talking about China. So we're going to play that clip. But before I do, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements that I offer and help support the channel. I have a great supplement that helps to detoxify your body. And when you detoxify your body, you're helping your immune system, your endocrine system, and your other bodily systems. Zeolite. Zeolite will bind to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals and allow you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. This way, you're getting rid of those toxins and your body is getting into homeostasis. You can take this every day, take 3 small drops underneath your tongue and drink filtered water. What you should also do is clean your environment. Stay away from processed foods and make sure you drink filtered water. So you're reducing your exposure to these toxins, but taking zeolite will also get them out of your body. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite. And I also have structural nanosilver lozenges that will help to neutralize. They're perfect for the allergy season, the cold season, even if you're just cleaning around the house. Again, they neutralize, that's really important, and it also protects your oral pharynx. Orange Splash, fortified with vitamin C, and Manuka honey. Very high quality lozenges. Take them right away if you're starting to feel some irritation, or if you're cleaning around the house, use them prophylactically. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
I finally found a tool that the top teams in tech are obsessed with right now. When the people behind companies like Vercel, Shopify, and Intercom, military equipment from our #1 adversary is absolutely. Welcome back. China retaliating against Washington's latest restrictions on drone exports. The Communist Party now banning 6 U.S. entities from engaging in trade with Beijing. The move coming after the U.S. targeted Chinese companies over national security concerns and forced labor concerns. Drones now a defining technology on the modern battlefield. The escalating fight between the U.S. and China over global manufacturing dominance, setting the stage for President Trump's expected meeting with Xi Jinping in September. When the communist leader comes to Washington, joining me now is the GETTR Institute Senior Fellow, Gordon Chang. Gordon, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. So your reaction to China now trying to retaliate against the U.S. On doing business on trade?
Good morning, Maria. I think the most important thing about the Ministry of Commerce actions yesterday was that they were not as impactful as the measures that the U.S. has imposed on China recently. And that shows you that the Chinese know that they don't have the ammunition. Right now, Xi Jinping has a critically export-dependent economy. That's the only way that he can grow GDP. And that means he needs access to the U.S. market, which means he can't irritate the Trump administration that much. So it's important for the United States to keep Chinese equipment out of our critical infrastructure. And I think it's actually pretty good that we're not getting Chinese drones because we need to build our own drone industry on an emergency basis.
Well, that was the most incredible thing. For so many years, we were buying drones from DJI, a Chinese drone manufacturer. And here we are openly saying that China is our #1 adversary, and we're buying, military equipment from our #1 adversary. It is absolutely incredible that that went on for as long as it did. And we still have so many DJI drones in our arsenal, do we not?
We do. And, just as recently as about 15 months ago, we had the Secret Service buying Chinese drones for surveillance and use in the White House grounds. These drones can easily be used to send information back to China. This is just insane. It was just insane.
Exactly. Talk about the fox watching the hen house over there. But look, I want to get your take on specifically what China is doing, because Scott Bessent was pretty clear when we were talking about the race to win on AI when he joined me just a week or so ago, a couple of weeks ago, when he said that we will not stand for theft when it comes to our AI models from communist China. Watch this.
We are finding watermarks of our U.S. large language models on many of the Chinese models. The U.S. government supports open source, but what we do not support is IP theft. The other question might be, should companies that are using Chinese models have to disclose that to their customers? These models have to be held to the same standard that U.S. models are, but more importantly, are they using stolen materials? There's a very technical AI word for it called distillation, but you and I would call it theft.
What about that, Gordon? We know that China has been stealing intellectual property from the United States for decades now. Are they doing it on AI models?
Well, they certainly are. And I love the Treasury Secretary, and I think he's doing a great job. But he needs to stop warning the Chinese and start imposing costs. On July 16th, we saw Kimi K3, the Chinese AI model. It was distilled from Anthropic's Fable. But there's no excuse for that happening, because on January 20th of last year, DeepSeek released its R1 model, which was distilled over ChatGPT-4, which was a violation of OpenAI's terms of service. So look, we know this has been going on for far too long. We need to stop talking to the Chinese. We need to start doing something, because they're not impressed by the Trump administration's words.
Yeah, good point there. And we'll see what happens ahead of this meeting, or whether or not we'll see a reaction after Xi Jinping leaves Washington, the meeting happening in September. Silicon Valley, meanwhile, facing new scrutiny over whether American AI innovation is potentially helping China close the technology gap inadvertently. Startups working with some of America's biggest AI players, including OpenAI and Anthropic,
are also providing training and technology to Chinese labs to build lower-cost models. Chinese researchers have reportedly used U.S. models to develop domestic defense AI capabilities. It's something we've been talking about for so long on this program. And current CIA Director John Ratcliffe told me about all of the national security threats from China all the way back to 2017. Here he is with me when he was Texas Congressman in 2020. Watch this. I know they've been stealing intellectual property for decades. Walk through some of the things that China is doing right now, Director.
China and China alone is the greatest national security threat that we face, and we see them growing their military. We see them economically, as you talked about, stealing through intellectual property, stealing through cyber warfare, stealing from our universities, stealing medical research, all to gain information which they know is what you need to dominate technologically. So, you know, China is not a good actor internationally. We need to call them out for what they...
Finally, no more PDT rule. Now, traders of all account sizes have more flexibility than ever before to engage in the markets. And Tasty Trade has the tools traders...
We need to call them out for what they are, not what they pretend to be.
So he knew all about this, Gordon. He's the CIA director now. I'm wondering what kind of accountability we may see here. Now that Bessent tells us that there are watermarks on Chinese AI models.
Well, we know what the problem is. As John Ratcliffe said in that clip, we've known it for decades, and that was a half decade ago. So the Chinese will continue to steal until we impose costs on China that are at least as great as the benefits they receive. This is not rocket science. This is an issue of political will, and the United States has very, very little of it, whether we're talking about the current president or his predecessors. We have just no political will to defend our economy. So the American people ought to be outraged, yeah, at the Chinese, but also at our political elites for not doing what is obviously necessary.
Well, President Trump has his own way of doing things, and he's the first president to actually take on communist China. So that must be said. Now, he may do it in his own way in terms of, you know, a friendly way. He's my friend. He's, you know, and at the same time, shutting down windows for Beijing. But he is the first one to take this on. Beijing is also said to be expanding its AI footprint in Africa through digital infrastructure and technology partnerships. Gordon, we know how this goes. Explain the significance of this push, because we've seen the CCP over and over again lend money to countries that need it. In particularly countries in Africa, knowing that they can't pay up, they'll take a port, they'll take, you know, land, whatever, to actually become dominant in that region. Explain the significance of this push in Africa.
Yeah, the important thing here is that the country that gets others to adopt its AI will dominate the AI race and the 21st century. And China is, with its open weight models, is and very low prices or no prices, as getting other countries to adopt its AI. The problem for China, though, is that you know, the Chinese investors, despite all of these great achievements that China announced last month, and they were two really important ones, not only Kimi K3, but also the deep ultraviolet lithography machine. These are really important advantages, but investors are fleeing the Chinese tech stocks because Xi Jinping has made it clear that Chinese companies aren't going to make money. And what they're going to do is flood the world and hope to get everybody to adopt their AI and then raise prices later on. They did this with solar panels. They're doing it now with EVs. The United States, we need to just have a reassessment of this. And this probably involves President Trump sitting down and talking to AI companies about how to get the world to adopt.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the magnesium and zinc. Magnesium and zinc is going to help with your immune system and help with brain function. Many adults aren't taking enough magnesium to improve their brain function. Very important to take this supplement. In addition, get the vitamin C and magnesium. This helps with the immune system, helps with skin health, and helps with brain function. You can stack them together, which I highly recommend. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Finance the old way. Finance the rent way.
The battle for the Senate taking shape, and a major Democrat primary victory in Michigan this week is sparking a fight over the future direction of the Democrat Party. Abdul El-Sayed's win over Haley Stevens for Senate candidacy, celebrated by progressives as a sign that the party base is moving in a new direction. Here's Sayed after the victory yesterday. Watch.
We took on a machine. You're not supposed to be able to beat $70 million of outside spending. A record amount of money spent in a campaign against a Democrat in a primary in any campaign. You're not supposed to be able to beat that. And what we showed is that the power of our many is greater than the power of their money.
Senator Bernie Sanders called the victory, quote, unprecedented, while progressive commentators like...
Now, Sayed, El-Sayed, is a communist, right? Just in disguise. He's truly supported by AOC and Bernie Sanders. Now, he doesn't want to label himself as a DSA candidate, but the DSA organization is supporting him. He never states how he's going to pay for his social programs. Same problem that we had with Mondani in New York. But there's something bigger going on across the country. Islamification of the political process within the United States at all levels. Federal level, city level, and state level. So what do we need to do? We need to push back. Even if you're slightly left or slightly right or middle of the road, these policies that these progressive candidates are pushing, we cannot afford. We cannot afford this Medicare for all. How are we going to afford all of this higher spending in education? Meanwhile, the educational system sucks. It's only giving good money for bad outcomes. So El-Sayed, he doesn't say exactly how he's going to pay for it, except tax the billionaires. But once you tax the billionaires, it goes down to middle class. The taxation will go to the middle class. That's what's happening in New York. He said, we're just going to tax the billionaires and the corporations. And all of a sudden they realize that their budget can't be balanced unless you go after the middle class. Same thing's going to happen with El-Sayed. So there is a battle for the soul of the nation. And that battle is happening during the midterms of this year. Now, it just so happens to be in November after 9/11/2026. The curse that I keep on telling everyone about is going to start 9/11/2026. It's very possible that if the United States doesn't do the right thing, that further economic hardship is going to manifest itself for the next 2 years. You can see these things starting to emerge. This democratic populism, this democratic socialism is starting to get into the politic. The economy is kind of faltering. The AI bubble may be bursting. Job growth is anemic. We keep on hearing about low fire and low hire. Where are these youth coming out of college going to work when there's low hiring? There's a lot of problems happening. On top of what's happening in the Middle East, our depletion of munitions because of the war. How do we defend Taiwan now? Are we overstretched? Our manufacturing capacity isn't there for ATACMS and Tomahawk missiles. What are we going to do? There are a lot of things starting to emerge that you can see that the curse can be initiated, can be activated. onto America, onto the United States. It's starting to emerge. You can see it. El-Sayed is dangerous. Just as dangerous as Mamdani. And they also have this little look about them when they think they say something that's witty, and they have that smirk. They have the same kind of smirk. Now, we don't have to look at Mamdani or El-Sayed to see what has been going on for the last 20 years. Look at Hamtramck. Look at Dearborn, Michigan. And there is this Islamification that's taking place in these cities. Are we going to wake up? Are we not going to wake up? They literally want to destroy the Constitution. DSA wants to destroy the Constitution. They do not believe in a constitutional republic. They want to abolish the Senate, abolish the executive branch. Well, wait a minute here. This sounds like Maoism. This sounds like Stalin. This sounds like Lenin. And who's the grandfather of all this? Bernie Sanders. Not Colonel Sanders, Bernie Sanders. And everyone out there still has the burn for Bernie. Who literally had his honeymoon in communist Russia. Now, what the hell is going on here? There is an orchestrated effort to move the country towards communism. So people need to start waking up. Now, who's voting for El-Sayed in Michigan? The educated youth. And the educated, liberal, white. What? This is exactly the whole thesis of Gad with his book, Suicidal Empathy. There's this empathy that's taking place for the Muslim and for, you know, giving more to individuals that supposedly are in need, and to take and to, you know, erode the foundations of the Enlightenment and just do this postmodern ethic. But wait a minute, it wasn't just Gad that said, beware of suicidal empathy. It was Nietzsche. Nietzsche warned people about this, what he called the slavery morality. And it was manifested in Christianity, according to Nietzsche, that, oh, turn the other cheek. Be compassionate. Well, people should be compassionate up to a certain point, so you don't have suicidal empathy. So people lost what Nietzsche was warning people about. People lost the warning of what Plato was saying about you need representatives that somewhat are educated. You can't just depend on the masses, because majority rule in a democracy, in a pure democracy, means the erosion of your property, means the loss of your rights, because the majority would say we should take from people. Well, that's not the type of government we have. That's the type of government the DSA wants. The type of government we have is a constitutional republic that's anchored in the Enlightenment. God, country, family, anchored with life, liberty, and property. But that's not the ethos of DSA. So we should maybe listen to Plato and be very careful of mob rule. Maybe we should listen to Gad and pay attention to suicidal empathy, and listen to Nietzsche about the slavery morality, and that this is exactly what is happening in Michigan. What Nietzsche warned us about is what's happening now. Now, we can go to even a contemporary philosopher that passed away in, I think, 2012, maybe 2014. Christopher Hitchens. Christopher Hitchens warned the whole public, the whole world, that this Islamification is going to happen, and that they're going to get inroads into politics, and there's actually going to be a deconstruction of your society. Fast forward to what's happening in London. Look at what's happening to England. The English are saying they are no longer, they don't even recognize their country. Now, if you're an American citizen that's been around for a while in the United States, several decades, 4, 5, 6 decades, I guarantee you that what you remember 3 decades ago, 30 years ago, is no longer what it is today in terms of the composition of the demographics, in terms of the educational prowess of the youth, in terms of safety and morality. Things have changed. So we've had philosophers warn us that this was coming. Christopher Hitchens, Nietzsche, Gad, Plato. The curse is coming. And it's the so smart that they're stupid demographic. The youth that think they know it all but have no experience. And the educated liberal in these college towns like Ann Arbor that are literally trying to destroy this country. Now, if you don't believe me, just listen to the platform of DSA. If you don't believe me, pay attention to how are they going to fund their programs. Mao didn't get into the heights of power overnight. Chipped away at it. Same thing with Stalin. Same thing with Lenin. Now let's think about Lenin for a moment here. The Bolshevik Revolution was literally funded by the Germans to reduce the pressure from World War I with the two-front war that was going on. Germany was fighting Russia, and Germany was fighting France and Britain. So they funded a guy named Lenin, and he was able to gain notoriety and gain political power and overthrow the czars. Just chipped away, chipped away, chipped away. So literally the seeds of communism go all the way back to World War I with the Germans. And we have now had it metastasize. And in today's world, it's now layered with Islam. So there's a little bit of a religious component to it. It's layered with Islam. It's masked with multiculturalism. dagger is communism.
Son Teicher argue Michigan could be the start of a larger movement. Watch this.
Do you see a progressive lane materializing that goes through Michigan for 2028 after tonight?
Absolutely. But it's not just Michigan. This is just the beginning. These are never supposed to be swing states, and they will never be swing states ever again if I have something to do with it. We will hopefully continue this movement all across the United States of America. We'll go to every single state.
Another key battleground race is in Wisconsin. DSA-backed gubernatorial candidate Francesca Hong is gaining traction there. The results could offer a look at how far this political shift will extend. Joining me now is the CEO of the Stagwell Group, Mark Penn, with us. Mark, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here this morning. And I know that Stagwell just reported a record second quarter, and we want to get to that in a moment. 11% revenue growth, 10% organic revenue growth. Congrats. You've spent years studying voters and political trends. I'm going to get to the growth story of Stagwell in a second, but first, give us the nuts and bolts here. How does this Michigan race play out, and what does that tell you about where the Democrat Party is headed right now? What can you tell us?
Well, this is a full-blown crisis, really a 911 call on the Democratic Party. I think they decided to have a big tent, and that tent is being devoured by the Democratic Socialists. Look, this was a split right down the middle. El-Sayed didn't get to 50%. There was a third candidate who had already withdrawn, maybe had the votes that would have given Stevens a win. But it's a genuinely divided party at this point, as the DSA has driven extraordinary support among particularly those in college educated voters who are actually, relatively doing pretty well compared to the working class and minority voters that voted for Haley Stevens. So this attraction to socialism, without really understanding what it means, because I asked him, I called, well, you're for socialism. Do you think everybody should make the same, or do you think you should earn according to what your work you're doing? They all say work according to what I'm doing. They don't actually believe in something. I say, well, do you think the state should own your house? And they'll say, of course not. I should own my own house. Do you want to own your own business? Of course I want to own my own business. So they have no idea what they're voting for.
That is wild, Mark. Those are really good questions that you pose to everybody. Let me ask you, does this most recent race in Michigan and the others that we've seen now, Mondani in New York, does this change your expectations for the midterm elections with Republicans traditionally losing the majority during a presidential year? Does any of this change that thinking for you?
I think absolutely. It really will depend upon how effective the Republicans are in terms of their midterm messaging, because a lot of the messaging has bounced off the Mondamis and the El-Sayeds. People haven't really effectively brought home how devastating they would or could be. They haven't written to small business people and say, do you want your business taken away? They haven't written to homeowners and said, do you think your home should be owned by the state? They haven't written to people who like their doctor and say, do you want the federal government directing your entire health care? They haven't really brought it home to people as a consequence, but absolutely, definitely. Look, with the Democratic Party split, with so many moderate voters not voting for El-Sayed, with him not really reaching out, obviously Rogers has a much better chance of winning today than he would have had against Stevens.
And what about the House? You think that the House loses the majority, or are you still questioning that now?
Well, conventional wisdom still goes, but I think this is an obvious opportunity. I think also, Maria, it is interesting that the economy itself is just generally a lot stronger than perceptions of the economy.
That's right.
And I think that that perception gap on the economy is something that the Republicans have been unable to shake so far.
Yeah, all right, let's talk about your company, because your company, Stagwell, is growing faster than peers. You reported yesterday record second quarter with 11% revenue growth, 10% organic revenue growth, record new business as the political advertising cycle is ramping up. The stock is lower by almost 4% right now. Give us your sense of the quarter. You raised your full year outlook as a result. What's driving business, and how are you taking market share from competitors? Nice move in the stock over the last, as you can see, a couple of months there, which is now trading at $8.85 a share.
Yeah, we're up almost 70%.
I tried every type of ED medication, Viagra or sildenafil, and Cialis or tadalafil. I know this works for some.
Yeah, we're up almost 70% of the year, and I think while a lot of our competitors at WPP report shrinking 5%, our digital transformation, for example, is growing close to 20%. Our overall company is in growth mode. Our net new business is at a record. Our stock has been very much in general on a tear to new heights because people recognize that compared to the rest of the industry, we have this incredible combination of creativity and technology that's been winning clients like IBM, Mondelez, Heineken, a record new $170 million of net new business.
That is awesome. That's terrific. So the political advertising is about to accelerate. What are you expecting in terms of growth rest of the year and into next year? And what about AI? It's transforming almost every industry we know, and the advertising world included. How much of the growth is AI versus traditional advertising at Stagwell?
Well, if you take a look at almost everything today is related to AI, and we have a partnership with Palantir to bring AI applications in marketing to the market. So we have very strong AI products. Our engineers here that really bring AI to business and to marketing. That actually is the fastest growing part of the business. So people look at us as an AI winner, and that's absolutely, I think, a critical part of our growth story. Plus, we do play in the political sphere, and this is going to be record double-digit growth in political, double-digit growth in terms of digital transformation, and that creativity is going strong. So I think in general, too, the market is not giving up on marketing.
Amazing. All right. Let me do a product plug here, and then we'll go to the hill. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the olive leaf extract. This is dual purpose. It's going to help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. Brings down inflammation and helps you to control your lipid profile. Super important, because when you do that, you're reducing plaque formation. And by bringing down inflammation, you're also boosting up your immune system. Omega-3 helps bring down inflammation, helps to control your lipid profile. By doing that, you're reducing plaque formation. It'll help to bring down your LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. Omega-3 is something that you should be taking every day, and it also helps to reduce the overclotting of the red blood cells. Ashwagandha root helps to control your cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels. This is going to help your cardiovascular health and your immune system. Lignans helps with the immune system and the endocrine system, soaks up free radicals, and brings down inflammation. And turmeric also soaks up free radicals and brings down inflammation. That's going to help with your immune system, your brain function, your joint health, your cardiovascular system. I highly recommend that you stack these together. They're synergistic to help to slow down the aging process. So please go to my store, use discount 5 to save some money, all caps, discount 5. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video.
How are you finding the time to send over all these meeting notes?
I got a secret. I've been using Granola.
What is Granola?
So it's an AI notepad. If you want to take notes during the meeting, Granola can fill it in.
Viral X controversy, I'm weighing in. Now, sometimes you hear something so crazy, it stuns you into momentary silence. But Ross Douthat, the New York Times conservative ex-columnist, such a pro that he had a quick comeback for an insane liberal professor who proposed, quite simply, the stupidest policy idea I've ever heard. The exchange happened on Douthat's New York Times podcast, which is sadly coming to an end, or at least ending with him at the helm, since Douthat is moving to 60 Minutes. He'll no doubt be very successful there, and I hope we are still treated to moments like this. The guest was Samuel Moyn, a law professor who, at Yale, who has warned that older Americans and their political and economic interests are coming to dominate the country's political system. Hey, that's a take I even agree with. Regular Rising viewers know, boomers are bleeding us dry. I'm on board with the framing of this conversation, which is how older Americans hoard the future. Now, we can talk about all sorts of possible solutions to the problem that the elderly have most of the wealth and most of the houses, and they also enjoy virtually all the political power, and thus they derive the lion's share of the government benefits, mostly in the form of having their health care paid for. But this idea, is not the answer.
I've gotten in some hot water for proposing we consider overweighting the votes of younger people or assigning the youngest eligible voters proxy votes for the unrepresented children of our country.
What?
So those are edgy.
Why not assign them to those children's parents?
Well, because there's a divergence of interest between parents and children.
So in case you missed it, what he's proposing is compensating for the political power of old people by indirectly giving votes to kids who are under 18, but they can't vote. So we actually assign those votes to young people who are over 18. So basically, if you're a little kid, you still don't vote, but now someone, say 19 years old, gets 2 votes, theirs and yours. Dowd had raised an obvious objection to that, asking why we wouldn't simply give the kids' votes to their own parents rather than to some random 19-year-old. Professor Moyne countered that he doesn't think parents represent the interests of their own kids as well as this random teenager would. Here's how Dowd responds.
And you notice the school system has this idea that the parent doesn't have say of what the education should be. Have you noticed that in the public schools? But it's also happening in the private schools. They don't want as much communication between the teacher and the parent or the student and the parent. So this way, the institution can program your kid. Now take it one step further with this proxy voting stuff. Well, if you program the kids to think differently than what the parents want, you'll be able to control the society for the future. Now, fast forward to where we're at with DEI and this DSA and this super liberalism and this over reliance on the philosophy of relativism. And we wonder how we got here. The school systems suck, but not just in teaching kids to read, write, and do arithmetic. They also suck because they're programming a group of people to actually hate the country, not know its history, not be aligned with the Enlightenment, not to have children that are God, country, and family. See the problem?
I think it's absurd to imagine that a 24-year-old recent college graduate has a better assessment of the interests of my own children than I do. And I say this with all due respect to 24-year-old recent college graduates, of whom I hope to be the parent of in 9 years or so.
Yeah, mic drop. Yes, of course, parents know their own kids' interests better than random fellow citizens do. In fact, every person in America is best qualified to organize his or her own life, and then maybe the lives of the people you're directly responsible for, not random people who are different from you. Why I'm a libertarian. No one is an expert in running some other family's business, especially not the government. It's also why far-left progressives often target family structure in order to enact their policy goals. They don't want you raising your own children. They want to raise your children for you. Better yet, get the state to do it. The state should be the parent, so that kids revere the state and see it as the provider, the authority figure. As for Professor...
And that is exactly what Mao did in China. Now, are we going to wake up? Or are we not going to wake up? Are we going to get on the battlefield and push back on these progressives? Are we going to get on the battlefield and push back on these socialists? Or are we just going to let our Constitution burn and burn down the whole government? Right? That's basically what they want. Just listen to them. They tell you what they're gonna do. This is not innuendo. The platform, the DSA platform, is telling you what they're going to do. It's crazy. And all these liberal professors and liberal kids, they think they're so smart, but yet they're stupid. They're so smart, but they're stupid.
He should leave this idea off his list of solutions for countering the power of the boomers. And indeed, he does note on X that it was apparently idea number 46 on a list of 50. So fair enough. I think it's possible the social media pile-on here is a bit unfair. They do agree with the overall problem. After all, I think we should reduce the absolute dominance of the elderly. We should do that by eliminating the unfair government policies that redistribute wealth to them. For instance, Abdul El Sayed, the far-left Michigan Democratic Senate candidate, has proposed only having property taxes on younger Americans. Older Americans wouldn't pay them. And if they sold their houses to people under 65, then those people would have to pay the taxes. So that's a scheme that would further concentrate the boomers' share of home ownership, which is crazy. Let older, richer Americans keep their wealth, but tax them at the same rate as everyone else, and maybe expect them to pay a greater share of their own healthcare costs. Imagine that.
I was so surprised that this is where you were going to go, because the guest Samuel Boyne, even though the solution did not match what a lot of people wanted to hear, the problem that he pinpointed is something that you often point to and you talked about. And I think when you unpack what's happening with Congress, with Chuck Grassley, who's 92, and the average voter being 52, there's a lot of people that feel like they're completely left out of the conversation. And I know we blame young people, like get out to vote more, be more civically engaged. When we look at the landscape, a lot of the laws then that apply to the older Congress that's enacting them benefit people that are over 50. And so young people being part of the conversation and differing from their parents, I think, is a valid statement. How to get their voices heard. The solution is not by just emphasizing that we should start making the voting age like 16 and
votes to 19.
I understand, but this literally is one solution to the problem that you claim is one of your biggest issues with current government, that old people hoard wealth. I often argue for older people and say, yes, the property taxes idea, for example.
Like a traitor.
These people have been paying their taxes for years. I want to make sure my grandma's okay. I think that we differ in that way. You think they're hoarding wealth, and I know plenty of old people, not personally, when you look at numbers, yes, because boomers are
numbers they have.
No, yeah, but there were the age group of older people changed completely because of the boomer generation. They're not getting older, so obviously, if you talk about the share of old people going from something like 13% to 18%, obviously the wealth is going to increase. There's more people, so you're looking at the problem and not diagnosing it completely. You're saying, oh, the same number of people are hoarding the wealth, when really there's just more of them that are getting older and happen to live their lives where they work.
They have more wealth. They have more average income per person. They have more in their bank account on average per person than younger people, which is fine. I'm happy to have them have it, but it's the dual issue. They have a much larger share of the wealth, and now, but also the government benefits are mostly healthcare. The government pays for people's healthcare, which is mostly them. So they have more of the wealth, but they're also getting more of the benefits. And now people are coming with proposals to not even tax them, like Abdul El Sayed. I mean, this isn't even a leftist idea. I don't know why he's pitching it too. Nancy Mace's pitched this, like Republicans and Democrats. Of course, they're doing it because they want votes from older people. Like that's the narrow reason they're doing it. But it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to have people who have had their whole lives to accumulate large fortunes and whose cost of living is substantially provided by the government. And now we're not even going to tax them at just the normal rate we're taxing everybody. That's crazy. Well, why can't I get you on board with how crazy that is?
Because I think the idea of investing and paying your taxes, investing in America for the duration of 40, 50, 60 years of a career, is that on the back end, for the last few years of your life, that America will take care of you like you took care of it. So you helped build all the roads and bridges. You helped make sure the schools were top tier, or you paid all your taxes. And so now enjoy the sunset part of your life. Relax. Like that's why we'll take some of the burden off, because you're not making the same salary you were making when you were in the workforce. Obviously, some people might have saved and put money away in certain places that it grows. Yes, but if the taxes
Whatever,
keep rising so much that they cost
percentage.
more than the house, which happens in New York sometimes when the house is paid off, well, what are people to do? The salary doesn't match, so now your taxes are even higher than the cost of your mortgage because your mortgage is completely done.
You can downsize and sell it to the other person.
Okay, I'll level with you that I read something that said the share of the wealth held by Americans under 40 is 6.6%. And I think that that's really bad, right? I also look at the studies that say the average homeowner age is just beginning at 40 years old. So even earlier than that is not even really on the table for a lot of people. And I understand that there needs to be policies, but I don't think we need to take away to give to the younger generations. I do think that younger people need to vote. We don't have to take it away from old people. Old people are civically engaged and active because they live long enough to see what happens when they're not engaged. Young people are living their lives very self-centered, not really focused on elections in the way that they should be.
At the time we designed this system where the government is going to completely provide for you in old age, people were only living like 5 or 10 years past retirement. Right. Now they're living 30 years past retirement.
Which is a great thing.
Well, that is a great thing, but it's making the system, it's bankrupting the system. And it requires more and more and more hard work, money, more confiscation of wealth from someone to pay for it. And why does it have to be from young people who can't afford to buy a house, are choosing not to have children because if they had children, they wouldn't be able to afford childcare costs for them?
But I wouldn't pinpoint old people as the thing that's on the top of my list. Bankrupting the system. I think where you and I agree is in places like Minnesota where we see that fraud is causing massive issues in the system. Places like Ohio where we see specific fraud. Places like people that President Trump has pardoned where we see billions of dollars of fraud has happened and then people have gotten pardoned and not had to pay that money back. That's what's bankrupting our healthcare system. Okay? If you want to go,
pardon's bankrupting.
Well, these people have made hundreds of millions of dollars and never paid it back. Fraud and schemes that they had.
Okay, we'll deport them all back to where they came from.
The point, no, everyone wasn't a migrant. Everyone wasn't a migrant. The people that President Trump pardoned were white men that were American.
Okay, we'll deport.
And made millions.
You know what? How about this? Here's my deal for you. We'll deport them too. Also back to Somalia, and then all the people who did the fraud in.
And what about all the people in Ohio? Or what about all the people in New Jersey that did fraud during the pandemic? Are you going to make sure that all of these people?
Substantially, they come.
Where's everyone going? I just want to make sure there's somewhere for everyone, even the Americans that committed a large share of the fraud since the pandemic.
You commit fraud, gone, out,
where?
straight to jail.
Oh, jail or out?
El Salvador. But that's not going to solve.
I'm saying when you talk about the issues, you feel like it's just older people. And I think that there are other options outside of taking away from older people that have given their entire lives to
I just don't know where do you liberals think we're going to come up?
The system can't afford what is happening. People need to wake up. Please go to my store and get the great supplements to help to improve your health. You want to save money on healthcare? Get healthy. Look in the mirror and realize most of the country's diseases, the top 3 diseases are self-induced, usually. If you live a healthier life, you're going to have more longevity. You're going to live longer, potentially. You know, anyone can be hit by a bus or some accident could happen. But statistically, if you take care of your health, you'll be healthier and rely on doctors less. You will not need to see a physician as often. You still need to do your cancer screenings and blood work and all this, but you won't be on pharmacopoeia. Diabetes, heart disease. Most cancers are self-induced because of lifestyle. And with all of this knowledge about geriatric medicine, sports medicine, longevity medicine, alternative approaches to health, you won't need to spend so much money on healthcare. So if a lot of people in the society did that, you would shave off tens, if not $100 billion of healthcare costs. It's very simple. But people don't do it because people are stupid. People would prefer to bankrupt the system then instead of look in the mirror and say, your health is dependent on you, not your physician. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the digestive enzyme complex. This will help to reduce the load on your pancreas. As you get older, your pancreas doesn't function as well. This will help to break up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. It has the enzymes to break up those foods. You'll be able to digest your food better. You'll be able to absorb your nutrients. This also has bromelain that helps to break up clots. Structural nanosilver toothpaste. Get a few tubes for your household. It'll whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, help reduce inflammation, and help to improve your gum line. It has the structural nanosilver, so it's going to neutralize. So it's going to improve the health of your oral cavity. And by doing that, you're also helping your cardiovascular system and the valves for your heart. A lot of people don't realize poor oral hygiene can lead to cardiovascular problems. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nanosilver toothpaste. This has no fluoride. You know why? Because fluoride makes you stupid. Now, get the structural nanosilver toothpaste, use it every day, but especially during the cold season because it helps to neutralize. And and the probiotics that I have two different versions. You can get it in the powder version or the veggie cap version. Take either one, take it every day, and this will help to improve your gut biome so you're absorbing your nutrients better, your skin will improve, your brain function will improve, your metabolism will improve, the communication between your gut and your brain, your gut and liver will improve, your immune system will improve, you'll reduce leaky gut syndrome and reduce your chances of getting food allergies. Good health starts with a good probiotic. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount $5 off. So you can save some money. But get the supplements, use them regularly so it helps to improve your health. And that's how you reduce healthcare costs in the United States. It's a very simple concept. And it works. And it's grounded with hardcore science. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video. All right, let's listen to The Hill about El Sayed.
I'll keep this quick. We need a huge number of donations today to flip this U.S. Senate seat in Texas. If ever...
El Sayed's victory isn't just a Michigan story. It's a warning to both political parties. Republicans immediately saw an opportunity within minutes of his primary win. President Trump took to Truth Social, calling El Sayed a, quote, communist, reviving false claims about election fraud in Wayne County without, once again, offering any kind of evidence. He said, quote, the communist who is not liked in Detroit is potentially in vote counter trouble. The radical left socialist has a real shot, and don't discount all those fake mail-in ballots that will surprisingly show up at the last minute. Get ready for another rigged election. It's clear Republicans are riled up about El Sayed, but Democrats have their own reason to be uneasy. For years, party leaders argued that battleground states are won by moderation, that swing voters reward candidates who project pragmatism over ideology. Well, Michigan Democrats just rejected that theory. Instead, they nominated a candidate running unapologetically on Medicare for all, getting money out of politics, ending U.S. military aid to Israel, and confronting what he calls a political system captured by wealthy interests. Primary voters are signaling that the old definition of, quote, electability no longer matches what they want. El Sayed's campaign wasn't built around convincing voters he was the safest choice. It was built around convincing them that the status quo is not working. After his victory, he framed it this way.
What we showed is that the power of our many is greater than the power of their money. What we showed is that if you're willing to build a movement brick by brick, if you're willing to go and travel your state and have the conversations in rooms big and small, starting in moments where people aren't even paying attention to an election, but are paying attention to the price of gas, the price of groceries, the price of housing, the price of healthcare, that you can build a conversation that builds into a movement that defeats Goliath.
Now, this is a message rooted in economic frustration. His argument is that voters care less about ideological labels than whether someone is speaking directly to the cost of living and the feeling that politics has stopped working for ordinary people. That's also why establishment Democrats were so uncomfortable with his candidacy. Michigan is not California. It's a purple state that President Trump won in both 2016 and 2024. Many Democratic strategists believe El Sayed's positions could alienate the very swing voters Democrats need to win statewide. El Sayed believes their thinking about electability is backwards. His theory is that enthusiasm can matter more than moderation, and that energizing younger and infrequent voters is a better strategy than constantly chasing the political middle. It's the same argument fueling other insurgent candidates the same election cycle. Voters don't want carefully calibrated centrists. They want someone who looks and is willing to challenge a political establishment they increasingly distrust. During a campaign rally earlier this year, El Sayed was asked about his relationship with controversial streamer Hassan Piker and said, quote, "The Democratic establishment, the Republican establishment, they can't agree on everything, but they can agree that one shall not campaign with Hassan Piker because that's the most important issue happening in America right now." Now, the joke was really aimed at both parties. His message is that political insiders are focused on the wrong debates while voters are focused on groceries, housing, healthcare, and whether Washington is even delivering at all. The challenge now is proving that theory works outside of this Democratic primary.
I'm actually going to start with a rare criticism of Donald Trump on this. I don't appreciate him making people feel like the election's already lost by saying a bunch of mail-in ballots are going to show up for Abdel El Sayed and at the last moment it'll be a rigged election. That will inspire, that's a blackpilling tactic to make your own voters feel like they can't win and the system's against them. That's not what we're going for here. We Republicans want to defeat Abdel El Sayed, should encourage their people to vote, and that was a little doom and gloom from him, not a good strategy. Because defeating him is very important because he is tied to Hassan Piker, someone who believes that America deserved 9/11,
which is Hassan Piker has said terrible things,
and Hamas
all
are A-OK in his book. The terrorist loves authoritarian China, dresses like a communist dictator. Can't imagine anyone on the Republican side campaigning.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. I can imagine.
In a Nazi
Let me tell you, Trump was endorsed by KKK Grand Wizard David Duke in 2016, didn't say a word. David Duke was out everywhere telling people to vote for Trump, didn't say, and then 2020, so many people got on Trump's behind about not saying anything about the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan supporting you, that finally Trump said 4 years later he was racist. Finally, wait a minute.
I don't remember Trump campaigning with a Grand Wizard of the KKK.
Let me finish. Trump
Can you remind me when that happened?
Let me tell you when Trump had dinner and hosted Nick Fuentes at the White House.
No,
Kanye
that's
West,
not true.
Who's
He had it with Kanye West.
And Nick
Kanye West
there.
brought Nick Fuentes.
Oh, they don't do security checks. And ask for something. Oh, he didn't know. He didn't know his card.
No one
late
knew
2022. Everyone knew who he was. He campaigned with Joe Arpaio.
Remember down dinner with Kanye West?
Racist sheriff Joe Arpaio. He campaigned with that man after he literally ignored a court order for racial profiling all over Arizona. Remember that guy? He supported and worked alongside President Trump. So stop pretending like you care about who folks campaign with. You don't.
All BS.
You don't. I named
that is not anywhere near.
I named a Ku Klux Klan leader. These are all people that support President Trump closely. He had them over for dinner. He campaigned with Joe Arpaio, who was obviously racist, and he is supported by David Duke.
He did not campaign with the Grand Wizard.
The only one you're pointing out that he didn't campaign, he was supported by KKK, didn't denounce it until 2020, 4 years after he'd been president. He had the other two for dinner.
You don't have to, no. You do not have to prophylactically denounce people who support you. You only have to do that if you willingly have them speak for your campaign.
Like Joe Arpaio, like he did, like Nick Fuentes. You should. He racially profiled folks. What do you mean? He's literally got criminal contempt charges for racially profiling people in Arizona, and that's who he chooses to campaign with him. But Trump is always confused when folks say, well, some of your policies that don't align with thinking about the people of color in this country with historical things that have impacted them
He
deeply.
racially profiled people in that he profile who we thought were illegal immigrants to.
By the way they look because of a racist standard. So, you know what, migrants come from all different countries.
Marginal.
No, it's not marginal. And Nick Fuentes is who he was. Everyone said, if anybody campaigned with Nick Fuentes, okay, having him for dinner is the same thing when you're president. This is 2022.
He did not invite Nick Fuentes.
That's an endorsement.
Kanye West brought.
Anyone that comes to the White House, anyone that comes to Mar-a-Lago is thoroughly inspected, and their background is checked, everything. They're not just coming for dinner with the president. It's not that simple, Robert.
Well, Nick,
so I want you to hold the same standard.
And wants Democrats.
I don't care what he does.
Democrats need to distance themselves.
Is Obama at dinner with Nick Fuentes? No. Okay, so like I'm just telling you, Trump was. So I just want to make sure that you're so concerned with somebody's friend, Hassan Piker, being El Sayed's friend. Make sure you're concerned with President Trump.
You understand the difference between affirmatively picking Hassan Piker to speak on your behalf at a campaign event and having dinner with a celebrity who brought someone who's problematic to the White House.
I'm just pointing out
a
flaw in your argument. I'm pointing out a big flaw in your argument because you now all of a sudden care so much about who people associate with, but you've never had this energy of people who associate with Epstein, which also includes the president. So like I'm saying, do you care about who people associate with or not? Like that's what I'm saying.
About who associates with Epstein because that.
Well, he's a pedophile. That's one of the top charges. Up there for me with anti-Semitic. Pedophile's right on up there. So I don't know why it's not for you if the president associates with a pedophile. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Because association is a problem for me and has been consistently since I've been on the show, and not for you. But for Abdul Sayed, it's the biggest problem in the world. His friend is someone you don't like, and who I've said is anti-Semitic. Yes.
Well, is anyone choosing Jeffrey Epstein to speak at their campaign?
Jeffrey Epstein
that's right, he's dead. He's dead. I'm not. I resent. Look, Abdul El Sayed picked this guy to speak on his behalf now. Now, it's not like it was 800 years ago and then his problematic views came to light and he wants to. Like, I'm not playing 6 degrees of separation. I don't care. People associate with
what Abdul El Sayed has said.
Abdul El Sayed now. Abdul El Sayed, he's picking Hassan Piker now. Hassan Piker is in a Mao uniform. That's as offensive as being in a Hitler uniform. And he was standing beside him. He's been standing beside him now. That's the difference. That's the problem. And Dems won't touch it. Yeah, where is the denunciation of it? This is the guy they pick because they think it's cool and edgy to associate with communist thug.
Listen, Hassan Piker, whether you like him or not, just like Nick Fuentes, has 8 million people that follow him that are young people mostly online. And so Abdul El Sayed is saying, I want to talk to your audience. And that's all he's saying. He's saying the fact that Democrats and Republicans, or Republicans mostly, are making this an entire campaign issue where he's on the campaign trail talking about health coverage, which nobody in Congress is for some reason, even though subsidies has expired. He talked about, yes, but this is not the person running. I object to Nick Fuentes in general. You can object to Hassan Piker in general. My point is, accessing the people that he's speaking to is the actual goal for Abdul El Sayed, which he has stated. And so if there's 8 million people watching, to ignore them is a problem, which he points to Democrats doing, which is why my lens touch both sides. Because you can't just ignore those people. Just like Donald Trump does not ignore the followers of Nick Fuentes. He teeters on the line of talking to them and not talking to them. You might not have Nick Fuentes campaigning with him, but he invited him to dinner, and guess what? Now he has access to these followers.
You have not updated your priors. Nick Fuentes and people like that are angry with Trump, and they have turned against Trump, and they are against J.D. Vance, and they're lining up to support Democrats. Like, you will be the side that will have to reject their support before long. And I don't care if you do or not.
What's happening right now? Nobody who's following Nick Fuentes is thinking about voting for AOC, so just stop.
But that's not true. It's just like factually inaccurate. These people have hate the war in Iran. Like, they feel the way about it.
So does everyone.
Not everyone, but they do.
Polls show that 70% of the country does not like the war in Iran. Does not think we should still be at war in Iran. So what does that have to do? It has everything to do with my point. Most people feel that way. That doesn't mean they're coming to the Democratic Party. That means that Trump lied on the campaign trail about what he would accomplish and what's actually being done. And people are frustrated with it.
The Groypers are moving on from the Republican Party.
Oh, you're pushing them with
Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene.
So all of a sudden I'm supposed to believe Tucker Carlson is a Democrat? No. That's not true.
Well,
policies don't align.
He's not a Republican.
He might align with traditional conservatism. I mean, the man was touting traditional conservative theories on Fox News for decades. What? Is that accurate?
People change their mind about things, Lindsay. He's had an evolution. He's different than he used to be.
No, and that's fine. Over this war and foreign policy. But it's not anything else. He doesn't want Medicare for all. He doesn't want to make sure that old people are protected.
Well, Medicare for all is a terrible idea, so we shouldn't have it.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. None of the Groypers are coming over to the Democratic Party anytime soon, or the progressive wing of the Democratic Party specifically.
I don't know that that's true. They are more in line with the things you're saying than the things I'm saying these days. So, well, you're the one saying you have to denounce, not putting the person on a pedestal, but you have to denounce them if they just happen to have liked or supported you or been
The Grand Wizard of the KKK, yeah. Does anybody disagree with me? Should you denounce support from the Grand Wizard of the KKK if you're running for president? Especially if you become president and then running again and have to support for a second term?
Does Barack Obama have to denounce the support of Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam? Who gives a... No one cares. It doesn't matter. A kooky person supports you. You don't have to do anything. You have to do something if you challenge them to speak at your campaign event. Then you have to do something. Is that fair enough? Is that simple enough? We don't do cancellation based on associations and past whatever. You just have to do it if you said, this person has authority to speak on my behalf and make a pitch to voters for me. Then you have to do it. That's my law.
And we're moving on. Senator John Fetterman clashing with Jon Stewart over Israel on the Comedian's podcast. Take a listen after the break.
A curse is coming. A curse is coming. And it's going to start on 9/11/2026. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Clarity Factor. This is a very important neurostat to help reduce brain fog. It gets rid of that brain fog, allows you to concentrate. And when you take this regularly, what will happen is your dendritic connections will improve. You'll be thinking faster and have better memory. It's a very powerful neurostat that will help to improve brain function. D3 helps with the immune system. It's a gene expression cofactor. It helps get rid of cells that are infected. It forces those cells to go into apoptosis. Vitamin D3 helps with the cardiovascular system and also help to build denser bone. Stack this with the magnesium supplements that I have to improve the efficacy. Vitamin B complex, super important, especially if you're 40 years of age or older. The first 4 B vitamins are part of the electron transport chain. That will help to build up the ATP in your cells so you have more energy. This will help to rev up the cellular metabolism and help to protect neurons through vitamin B12. And lastly, resveratrol. Resveratrol is going to help to soak up free radicals, improve the health of the mitochondria. You'll have more energy. Resveratrol helps to get rid of cells that are in senescence. Resveratrol helps with youthful gene expression. And by taking resveratrol regularly, it's also going to help with your skin. It helps the basal layer where new skin cells are produced. This stacks really well with C60, especially for that basal layer. So if you want to slow down the aging process, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Nobody makes eye contact anymore. We look at the doc, the chat, the notes we're frantically typing.
Well, welcome back. The Senate is scheduled to begin recess tomorrow, and then they're not back until September 14th. Majority Leader John Thune is indicating they're not leaving town just yet. They'll likely be in here part of the weekend because he said there is, quote, a stack of stuff to do, including Reconciliation 3.0, which includes the Save America Act, the Clarity Act, the NDAA, defense money, and keeping government funded so the Democrats cannot shut things down right before the midterm elections at the end of September when current funding runs out. Joining me now is Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy. Senator, great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Maria. Good to be with you.
Well, Senator, you've previously said you want to see offsets in the budget framework, and of course, we're all expecting that, given the fact that the parliamentarian has been very clear that you need to have offsets if you're going to have spending in the package. So the House delivered something with no offsets. Does that mean you're a no on Reconciliation 3.0 right now?
No, without paying for it. You're seeing mortgages back up to like 6.8%. We cannot continue to spend money we don't have and expect no consequences. So the average person can't afford a home because mortgage rates are so high because the government is borrowing so much money. But I will offer offsets. If what we're voting on is so important, we should be able to pay for it, and I will offer things that will pay for it.
So let's talk about that, because I know that the House Freedom Caucus is also where you are, and the House Freedom Caucus sent a letter to Mike Johnson months ago saying that any Reconciliation 3.0 bill must include strict dollar for dollar and year for year spending cuts to restore fiscal sanity, control the deficit, and delay the looming debt crisis. Senator, where can you identify those offsets and how you offset the spending that is required for defense, for example, and for these other things? Where are the offsets?
So, Maria, to think that we can't find $350 billion in the federal budget, which is a several trillion, is kind of like, what? We can't? So I can't go to the Pentagon budget. But let's just say that there's one of my colleagues who has a bill that goes after fraud in government. And she says it saves $240 billion. $240 billion just going after the fraud that we know that is out there. There's other things where people are manipulating things in the healthcare system to drive up their payments. I'll put up a bill regarding that. And so there's another way in which people financing stock are able to trade on one way, turn around and sell it on another way, all avoiding taxes, not adding to the economy. There's a way to save money on that. And you put it all together, we more than pay for what this bill is. If this is such an important bill, and I think it is, then we should pay for it, and there are ways to pay for it.
So is there enough time? I mean, when you consider the fact that the Senate will return on September 14th, and the House is going to return at the end of August 31st, is there enough time to take action on that and put those offsets in there before the midterm elections, which will just be 35 days once you get back?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We'll be here in September. John Thune said that we're going to stay here until we, get the CR passed, and so we can expand our work week. I'm okay with that. We can come back earlier in September. I'm okay with that. So we have enough time in September. But to put it differently, the family that can't afford a home right now because mortgage rates are too high, they may not quite see the connection between the federal government borrowing too much, subtracting the amount of money that they can borrow, therefore driving up mortgage rates. But we see that, and our obligation to them is to make their life more affordable. And one way to make their life more affordable, lowering mortgage rates, means the federal government pays as it goes. Let's pay as we go. Let's get it done.
Well, it's all very practical thinking, and you've been raising the alarm on Social Security solvency for a long time. It's projected to be depleted by the fourth quarter of 2032. If that happens, benefits will be cut by 22%. According to the latest report from the Social Security Administration, what are you expecting, and what can you do as an elected official to ensure that Americans who've paid into these benefits are able to receive them?
Right now, I'm trying to set Dick Durbin, a Democrat from Illinois, bipartisan. We're trying to get a resolution passed that would set up a process for Congress to consider solutions, and we would consider those solutions later in the year. There are people objecting to even setting up a process. Now, we're not saying you got to do it this way or that way. We're saying, no, let's Congress meet bipartisan, House and the Senate over the next 2 months, consider something and deliver it to be considered in a committee the way we normally would. There are people objecting to that. Now, why Congress shouldn't do its job and fix Social Security, I have no clue. Again, it could be a Bernie Sanders proposal. It could be an Elizabeth Warren proposal. It could be a Bill Cassidy proposal. But at least let's consider a proposal. And that's what we have to do first, set up that process. I will be introducing something today on the floor of the Senate to set up that process. We'll see if somebody comes down there and objects.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, you can't hold defense spending hostage, right? I mean, Iran and Oman are right now finalizing new Hormuz traffic routes, we understand. Shipping still in limbo there. Axios is reporting that top Pentagon officials are already talking about a fourth reconciliation bill to Senate Republicans because they have to address defense spending and the need of AI investments as well. So what are you expecting in terms of this NDAA and the supplemental that is being asked to replenish weapons lost in this Iran war?
Right now, Democrats are holding up the NDAA. I have no clue why. I agree with you that we have a lot of problems. But I'll also go back to the budget reconciliation bill. We have the way to pay for this, and we've got two things going on. We've got to support our defense, our military defense, but we've also got to support the American people. And the more that the federal government borrows and doesn't pay for what it's doing, the more it drives up interest rates, the less affordable your new car, your new house, your credit card debt, everything else is. So we've got to do two things at once. Support our military, and at the same time, find the way to pay for how we're doing that. And we can do that. Absolutely. As I mentioned, Senator Ernst has a bill that would save $240 billion from cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. That's a nice way to pay for something. Let's pay our way.
Yeah. What about what's going on the other side? I mean, progressives scored major victories, certainly in Michigan yesterday and elsewhere, but far-left candidate Abdul El-Sayed defeated Congresswoman Haley Stevens for the Democrat Senate nomination. The race was closer than polls projected, El-Sayed winning by less than 1 point. And of course, he'll now face former Republican Congressman Mike Rogers in November. Before Tuesday's election, polls already showed Rogers beating El-Sayed in a head-to-head matchup. But Senator, I want to get your take on what you're expecting from the midterm elections when it comes to Republicans and what this particular race may say about the direction of the Democrat Party right now.
First, Mike Rogers is a great candidate. He will represent Michigan well, represent the United States of America well, number one. Number two, the Democratic Socialists of America are the energy center for the Democratic Party. And people are not aware of their program. They want to work towards abolishing prisons. They want to defund the Pentagon. They want to get rid of the presidency, get rid of the Supreme Court, get rid of the United States Senate. They want to redo our country in a way which more...
This is exactly what Maoism is. You vote for a DSA candidate, you're voting for Chairman Mao.
Closely represents communism than it does what we have now. Now, by the way, for younger people who did not live through communism, you don't understand as the government becomes bigger and bigger, it just strangles individuality and freedom. It is un-American what they want to do, and that's the enthusiasm and the energy of the Democratic Party. Mike Rogers represents a bulwark against that. We need to support Mike Rogers.
All right, we'll be watching all of that, and it is going to really heat up once you all are back from the recess. Senator, we'll be watching your work going into it and once you're back. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Thank you, Maria.
Good to see you. Senator Bill Cassidy, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Become a smarter investor with CNBC Pro. 24/7 access to market-moving news and interviews with 3 global live streams. Become a CNBC Pro.
All right, so the S&P 500 is trading at 7,712. It's starting to lose steam, like I said it would. So people were paying attention that once you hit the 7,600 mark, you take a little bit of cash off to the side, put it in cash or cash equivalents, and wait it out. What I did was about 7-8% in cash. Just wait it out. It may go up, but there's going to be a correction coming. I'm pretty sure about that. The semiconductors are doing all right today. The short ETF that I've been looking at, SSG, is trading at 1175 right now. And so, you know, it's just kind of just hanging in there at the low end. The trading range is around 1150 to about 1250. Oil is trading at 76.92. It's creeping up to $77 a barrel. And VIX is stable, set in 15. Natural gas is trading at 2.646. Intraday, it went as low as 2.616. I closed out some short positions, made a little bit of money on that, and then rebalanced the long position and put some more short positions in. So I'm in and out with the natural gas. Right now it's trading at 2.646. So if you want to short the S&P 500, an ETF like SDS, that's trading at 53.91. If you want to long it, it's trading at 70.93. Okay. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Myotrol. This is very important if you're 40 years of age or older. Why? Because when you get older, you methylate your genes and the gene expression changes. Your epigenetics change when you get older. So it's harder to build muscle. Myotrol will help to build that muscle. It helps with the gene expression to build muscle and to maintain it, so it reduces atrophy. And it helps the health of the mitochondria, so you maintain that muscle. It has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans to help build muscle. So do some resistance training, take the Myotrol. That's for individuals that are 40 years of age or older. Now, if you're an athlete, younger or older, you'll also benefit from Myotrol. You'll be able to recover quicker after your workout and build the strength that you need for your sport. Another great supplement that I have that's dual purpose is Gladiator Barley. It'll help to build muscle. So if you're 40 years of age or older, or an athlete, younger or older, take the Gladiator Barley, do some resistance training. But it doesn't just build muscle. It helps to detoxify your body, bring down inflammation so you recover quicker after a workout, and soaks up free radicals. And that way, you're slowing down the aging process. You're boosting up your immune system, you're helping your endocrine system, you're helping with your brain function and your cardiovascular system. Why? Dr. Paul Cottrell, why does that work? Well, by bringing down inflammation and soaking up free radicals, you're reducing plaque formation at the vascular level. By soaking up free radicals and bringing down inflammation at the brain level, your neurons are healthier. So the connections between the neurons are healthier. And when your blood flow is better to your brain, your hippocampus is healthier, and therefore your memory is improved. Your joint health will improve also by keeping that inflammation down. And by regularly soaking up free radicals and keeping down the inflammation and detoxifying your body, you don't have as much stress in the tissues of your body, and you're going to be slowly aging. You're helping this aging process. You're slowing it down. When people have lots of inflammation, their immune system is out of whack. When you have lots of free radicals, you're aging quicker, those tissues. Your epigenetics methylate faster. You want to keep that inflammation down. You want to soak up those free radicals and slow down the aging process. So this is a great way to do it. It's a very simple protocol. Soak up free radicals, bring down inflammation, boost up your energy levels, and apply a holistic approach. Proper diet and exercise, do more resistance training than cardio. You want about a 60-40, 70-30 split. You want to do some stretching and balancing exercises to activate that cerebellum. Learn new things, talk to people, write. That will activate that brain function. Proper sleep. That will slow down the aging process and detoxify your central nervous system. Drink filtered water and stay away from processed foods. And when you do that regularly and take the proper supplementation to soak up those free radicals and keep that inflammation down and boost up those energy levels, you are radically slowing down the aging process. It's a very simple concept, and it works. And it's grounded in geriatric medicine, and it's grounded in sports medicine. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
$5. That's how much I'm hoping you'll contribute to our campaign to take back Texas. $5 to defeat the billionaire mega.
It's in the transformation of the Democratic Party. And what the debate within the Democratic Party is about, it's not only about ideology. I want to see billionaires start paying their fair share of taxes. I believe, as progressives do, that healthcare is a human right. We need Medicare for all. It's not only ideology that we disagree with the Democratic leadership about, it's how you do politics.
So it looks like Bernie may be on to something. Let's take a look at some of these progressive upsets, starting with New York 14. As you can see, outspent $3.3 million to AOC's, a little over $300,000. When you look at Zumra Mandani, $1.6 million. Andrew Cuomo, big establishment candidate, $4.2 million. It was a little closer in this Michigan primary right here, but it's really not about the money when you look at these candidates. It's more of that Obama wing style campaigning. You go to the door knocking. I remember when people were talking about Zumra Mandani, many people said that they hadn't heard from Cuomo, but they got door knockers at their door 3 times. You look at the small dollar fundraising, why that matters to voters is you're talking about a wealthy person that's given, that's one vote. But when you're looking at these small dollar fundraisers, that is more people going to the polls. If I give you $20 out of my paycheck, I'm going to go and vote for you as well. And then you look at these young people. These young people are voting for the first time for these candidates, and they're bringing 3 friends with them when they go to the polls. And then a consistent message. These people know how to message to the voters. They're talking about the issues that matter to them. So why are Democrats supporting these candidates? So bring in a Democrat himself, Patrick Murphy, former Pennsylvania congressman. Now, Congressman, I know you very well. I've seen you on our program. You served our country. A lot of these issues that these progressive candidates support, you don't support. Why is the party coalescing behind them for the general election?
Yeah, well, I think for the most part, they're not actually, Lawrence. Even like in Al Zaid's case, right, in Michigan, he's actually not a Democratic socialist. He said, I'm a capitalist. He's a Rhodes Scholar. And I know there's about 250 Democratic socialists elected across Pennsylvania. You mentioned, Madami, obviously you're mayor there in New York City. But of the 250, Lawrence, there's 600,000 elected positions. You know what's not been shown? How many independents, like in your home state of Texas, 2.9 million independent voters. In Michigan, 1.3 million independent voters. It is the fastest growing party in America, dwarfing Republicans and Democrats, and certainly Democratic socialists.
I just want to slow it down a little bit, because when I talk about some of the issues, he left the party of Democratic Socialism. He was once affiliated with them, but I think it's less about the label itself and more of the issues that they represent. So let's just go through some of it. And because I know you don't support this stuff. Reparations, abolish ICE, defund Department of War, get rid of the Senate, abolish, get amnesty for all immigrants, public ownership of large corporations. So when you look at the bulk of this is not something that you support, but you're doing it in the general election, and I just want to know why.
Yeah, listen, I can't speak for Democratic Socialists of America. Right? I'm a Democrat, but I will tell you that a lot of those issues, and you want people out, they're door knocking, et cetera, in these campaigns. But Lawrence, is really coming down to affordability. I think people are losing their focus, and I say both parties, frankly, on the affordability issue. Democrats blame President Trump blames Joe Biden. The bottom line is this: gas is up over $1 in the last 2 years. Inflation not going down. Groceries still going up. So people are incredibly frustrated, Lawrence, and that's why you're seeing the same numbers. Lawrence, you mentioned, I appreciate you doing it earlier on. When I came back from Iraq, I ran for Congress, and I was independent most of my life, came back as Democrat, won, right? At that time, the President Bush approval rating was 37%. President Trump's approval rating right now, Lawrence, is 38%. When you looked at the generic ballot, Democrats were up 6.5%. Right now, they're up 6.5%. What does that mean? History rhymes. In 2006, when I won, 31 other Democrats won House seats. 6 Democrats won U.S. Senate races. That's why I think this is another wave election where Democrats are going to at least take about the House and maybe even the Senate.
I hear you. But are you comfortable turning over the keys over to this movement? I know Democrats like to make the comparison to the Tea Party. I'm comfortable
turning over the keys to the Tea Party because they were wanting to limit government. And you have some of the breakout stories of the Republican Party, right? Whether it's Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, they all came through the Tea Party way. There wasn't a movement to get rid of the foundation of this country. So my question is, are you okay turning over the keys to this movement? No. Because you're not going to get it back. If this is the case, if it's all about affordability, because it's not going to make life better for people, this socialized approach, are you okay turning the keys over to them?
But I don't think the Democrat Party's not turn over the keys to the Democratic Socialist ones. I really don't think so. And again, I point to the numbers. 250 were elected of the 600,000. There's like a handful that 535 federal elected officials in the U.S. House, the U.S. Senate. There's like a handful that are Democratic Socialists, right? And, Bernie Sanders is obviously a senator. He's independent, but he's really.
DSA is a cancer and it's spreading. So it's not about absolute numbers. It's the location. They're setting in motion to be activated and it'll spread. It's orchestrated.
Democratic caucuses with the Democrats. So Lawrence, I think this is overblown. I think folks are trying to, shift blame and shift what's really going on in America. And that's elected officials, Lawrence, not fighting for folks like you and I, not fighting for affordability, forgetting why they were there to fight for all this. The bottom line, Americans are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And they better get it in Washington, they better get it quick because people are coming after those
Patrick, I'm going to save this tape because you think that I'm going to save it. And when Schumer is no longer the leader, when Hakeem is no longer the leader, I'm going to bring this tape back for you. And when their guys are in charge, I'm going to say, Pat, I told you so. You should have got ahead of this. But I appreciate you coming on, brother.
I appreciate it. Lots of love you, buddy.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
The results are in. Commotion Voice AI is the clear winner in the latest independent blind benchmark. Tested not in demo environments, but under real-world conditions, Commotion outperformed other leading voice AI providers across all evaluated.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the cleanse or the Max 35. This will help to boost up your innate immune system. Take a teaspoon a day, swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds or 30 seconds, and swallow it. What this will do is improve your oral cavity, improve your oral pharynx, help to maintain a mucosal barrier, and help the health of your epithelial cells. This will boost up your innate immune system, and it will neutralize. That's really important, especially during the cold season. I've been doing this protocol for over 6 years, every day. Teaspoon a day, every day. Boost up that innate immune system, and by doing that, you don't get sick as often, and that will help to slow down the aging process. I have structural nail silver gels. They're dual purpose. You can get it in the tube form or the quick dispenser called Renew. You can use it as a daily skincare. You can put it on a cut. It'll help to heal the cut or the abrasion or a minor burn quicker. Put it on your hands, lightly coat your nostrils. It stays active for 5.5 hours, perfect for the cold season and the allergy season. So please go to my store, get the structural nail silver gel, have some at work or at home. You never know when you need it. And get the Max 35 or Cleanse. Use it every day to boost up that innate immune system. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, use discount 5, and you get $5 off. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. Click the link, go to the website, get the great products that I offer, and slow down the aging process. Be healthy, have more vitality, and you won't be dependent on pharmacopoeia. You'll save money in the long run. Morning Joe. What's going on with Morning Joe?
The Iranian government said yesterday it is in the, quote, final stage of drafting an agreement with Oman over the Strait of Hormuz. The country's foreign ministry spokesman added that a joint statement would be issued if certain parties do not obstruct the process, seemingly referring to the United States. Iran also continues to insist on some measure of control over the strait, saying it will not go back to its pre-war status of being an open international waterway. The Trump administration previously had rejected any deal solidifying Tehran's control over the strait. Regional officials tell the Associated Press the draft deal with Oman is finalized and awaiting approval from Iran's supreme leader, who is believed to be wounded and has not been seen publicly since the start of the war. The officials add the potential deal as a temporary solution to the dispute over the key waterway and could pave the way for the U.S. and Iran to resume nuclear negotiations. Vice President J.D. Vance was asked yesterday on Fox News about where talks stand.
Number one, the Iranians are extraordinarily difficult people. Number two, they have a fractured system. So there are people within their system who want the war to be over. There are also people within their system who are crazy radicals who want the war to continue. Our job is to navigate through that and get the best outcome for the American people, but for the President of the United States as well. And I do think that where we will ultimately land, it's going to be messy, and it's going to take some time to get there. Where we will ultimately land is, you see, oil, I think, was at $79 today. Those oil prices are going to come down and stay down. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, and the United States will be in a stronger position. But we're kind of in the middle of the game. I think people are trying to prejudge exactly how this is going to go.
Joining us now, President Emeritus of the Council on Foreign Relations, Richard Haas. He's author of the Substack, Home and Away. Richard, good morning. First of all, it's amazing to watch the administration discover that Iran is extremely difficult. Or the other day, President Trump said they're very duplicitous. You don't say, Iran. Do you agree with his assessment of where things stand, and also your assessment just of what this potential deal with Oman could mean for the Strait of Hormuz and the war itself?
I think there's a pretty good chance we'll get this deal, which at a minimum will lead to the reopening of the strait for some time. Where I think he has it wrong is Iran is going to have far greater control over the strait than it had before the war. It's in a position here to dictate which routes or channels ships use. They're not imposing tolls, but the MOU, Vice President's administration signed, gives Iran the right to impose tolls after 60 days. So that's a question of when, not if. So yeah, I think that's going to happen. The United States is going to have to ultimately lift its blockade, essentially to reopen the strait, allow Iran to sell some oil, lift that sanction. So I think that's going to happen. The nuclear issue, talks haven't even begun yet. We're talking about years of dealing with the nuclear issue. It's going to be incredibly complicated. What I think we're looking at, Willie, is not a black or white situation. We're looking at a messy situation. It's at best an intermittent ceasefire. There'll be periodic problems. This or that Iranian proxy will attack this or that target or ship. It's not going to be neat and clean. It's certainly not going to be peace. There'll be ceasefires some days. It's just going to be messy, and that's the future of this part of the world.
John, in the piece you were talking about earlier, your piece for The Atlantic, of the embarrassments that President Trump is feeling right now, Iran is certainly the biggest. A war he thought was going to be quick and easy with overwhelming military might drags on and on and on, as Richard points out, may end up with Iran in a better position than when the war began.
Yeah, he has been routinely embarrassed and humbled by the situation in Iran. I just over the last week, at the end of on the end of last week, he says we've had a deal, then we don't, so we're going to ramp up strikes, and he's told we don't have the missions to do so. And then over the weekend at Camp David, and then he says there's going to be a deal again, and then there's not, and now maybe there is. I mean, it's this pattern, Richard, where he threatens something, Iran calls his bluff, it doesn't happen. But if this deal were to come, I'm curious your take on how the rest of the Gulf is going to react, because so many of the leadership there has been insistent that we are not going to pay for access to the Strait of Hormuz, which had been open and free for all. We're not going to put money into a fund that will eventually use to rebuild Iran, which of course has been bombing us now for months. But I talked to someone in the region yesterday, and it's just, they almost like throw up their hands. Like, we give up. We've lost such faith in this White House.
Two things. First, the rest of the region, the Arab countries, look, we haven't been able to defend them. We won't be able to defend them. They have basically decided they're going to have to accommodate, learn to live with a more radical, more influential Iran. And I think what you're going to see is some combination of accommodation. You use the word of peace, but I use the word accommodation. They're going to probably become a little bit more self-reliant. And by the way, if Iran ever moves towards nuclear weapons, guess what? Several of them will as well. They're going to look for new partnerships. maybe in Pakistan, some with Turkey, some with one another. They're not going to depend on us, though. I think what you're seeing is they have learned the hard way that reliance on the United States is a risky business, and they can't depend upon us. For the Trump administration, what's so interesting here, the word dilemma is overused. It's a real dilemma. They don't like this. But the answer is, what can they do about it? They want the Strait open for all the economic and political reasons. What are they going to do militarily? After 5.5 months, every time we pound Iran, we don't get the results we want. And we can't prevent Iran from escalating against the energy and water infrastructure of the neighbors. That would be a disaster. That would be a disaster. So the administration can threaten, but then it has to back down. It can't use military force against Iran's energy infrastructure. You almost have a kind of mutual assured destruction thing. We can't go after Iran in order so they won't go after the neighbors. So the administration can talk tough, but at the end of the day, they're going to have to accept a more influential around this war. Let's just be blunt. Yeah. It will leave Iran better off for all the damage we've inflicted. It'll leave the United States worse off in this part of the world. And more broadly, it raises fundamental questions about the dependability and reliability of the United States.
I think certainly all of that is true. I think the other piece of it that strikes me when I hear the vice president speak about this is the fact that he's saying we are in the middle of it, when the president has tried repeatedly to say, well, it's wrapped up. We're in the MOU. The Hill is trying to figure out which way is up in terms of, is it an active conflict or is it not? Though clearly it is. And I wonder, when you think about the ways that the Iranians are continuing to exercise their leverage over the Strait, what are the ripple effects of that? Put aside the fact that the Middle Eastern countries are starting to make deals because they are recognizing what the landscape is. What are the practical implications of the Iranians continuing to leverage their control of the Strait?
It's everything we've been talking about.
Yes.
It basically means
but going forward,
Iran was in some ways had the worst years possible after October 7th.
Yeah.
It lost the regime in Syria. It lost control of its own airspace. Its proxies were getting hammered. Iran has emerged from this in some ways as the most influential local state. That's not going away. America's relationships with its partners in the region are clearly frayed. These countries are essentially on their own. Energy prices are going to be somewhat higher than what were they, $3 a barrel before the war? At best, we're probably looking at $3.50 or something like that. The pressure on nuclear weapons isn't going away. As bad as the Strait is, the situation, the issue of Iran's nuclear program, more people in Iran want nuclear weapons now than before the war. A lot of them are saying, we never would have gotten attacked had we got nuclear weapons. Iran is more radical than it was before the war. We've achieved regime change, just not in the way we wanted to. We brought about a more radical regime. So the nuclear challenge is enormous, and it's sitting out there. So again, this war did not resolve things. And what's so ironic? Think about it. The national security document of this administration wanted to dial down American involvement in the Middle East. It's going to be very hard to do it, or if we do dial it down, we're going to end up with the Middle East that's much less supportive of American interests.
Yeah, Iran's going to end up where North Korea is, where they feel like they need those weapons to guarantee their very survival.
Yeah, and to your point about gas, 406 this morning, it was $3.17 a gallon a year ago.
Used recently is Kayak. So you can, tell it exactly what trip you want to take, when you want your flights, and it will give you all the flights that are bookable right there on the platform. So they are making advancements, but I do think that there is a longer term threat from these LLMs.
Taking meeting notes in 2026 is easy, even without a bot joining the call. I'm in meetings all day, and trying to take notes during calls and remembering to follow up on everything after really slowed me down. That's why
a lot of concerns about the fact that, Abdul has brought in Hassan Piker. Abdul al-Sayed chose to bring in Hassan Piker, not a Michigander, an outside podcast influencer who once said America deserved September 11. Just last week, he added a framed picture of the September 12 New York Times front page with the World Trade Towers burning in the background.
Now, have you been paying attention to my broadcast for the last over a year? I've been saying that there's a curse coming, and it's going to be on 9/11, 2026. It's going to start. It's going to last for 2 years. The reason being, Rosh Hashanah coincides with the Sabbath this year on 9/11. Well, wait a minute. What does that mean? That means that you can't blow the shofar and you can't silence Satan. You can't silence Satan. So there's a curse coming. Normally during Rosh Hashanah, shofar is blown, the ram's horn is blown, and what will happen is that you can nullify the prosecutor. Well, you can't nullify the prosecutor when Rosh Hashanah coincides with the Sabbath. And it just so happens to happen on 9/11, 2026. And this situation of coinciding with the Sabbath is going to happen for 2 years consecutively. That's a bad sign. And so just on a surface level, there's a connection to 9/11. And part of the curse is the Islamification of Western culture. We're seeing it playing out in the news. I also said right after October 7th that the tail will be eaten within the Democratic Party. These ultra liberals are going to be eating themselves. What's happening right now? The Democratic Party is fighting itself between the established Democrats versus these ultra progressives, DSA types. You're seeing it playing out in the news. And I told you this was going to happen in 2023. In 2023, right after October 7th.
To show off on his Twitch stream,
Piper has said America deserved 9/11. Are you comfortable with that association?
No, I am not. I think that's a dumb statement. On the other hand, he has a whole lot of followers and a lot of things that he's saying that are making sense to a lot of people.
So when someone like James Carville says he doesn't want to be in the same political party as Hassan Piker, which one are you going to take?
So Mr. Carville doesn't want to be in my party, the party that I belong to, that Piker, that Syed belongs to. He can start his own party.
Well, I mean, right at the end, he ultimately said, yes, I want people like Hassan Piker in my political party. He wants people in the party that say America deserved 9/11. He wants people in his party that are out there idealizing Chairman Mao and the like. I mean, this is not something I would be embracing if I were trying to build a political party that could appeal to, mainstream Americans.
During the campaign, a leaked audio from his campaign came out of Abdul El-Sayed, in which he was worried about commenting on the death of the Ayatollah because he didn't want to offend his supporters. Yeah, the world is in chaos, and this guy can't figure out what side of the ball he's on.
Okay, that was Democrat Congresswoman Hillary Schulter first, and then CNN's Abby Phillip calling out communist Abdul El-Sayed. He's been campaigning with Hassan Piker. He said Americans deserved 9/11, but that was socialist Bernie Sanders defending Piker on that, saying James Carville should quit the Democrat Party if he doesn't like it. Scott Jennings on CNN asking, how will saying Americans deserve 9/11 win Democrats the midterms? Politico reports not a blowout victory for the communist far left last night. El-Sayed won the Democrat Senate primary in Michigan by just 1 point. Far left socialist Cori Bush lost in Missouri. So far this year, 38 DSA candidates have won, but 38 have lost. Hundreds of Democrat and GOP candidates have won races nationwide. The Democrat communists have given themselves sort of like participation trophies, but their ideology is poison. Joining us now from Senate Judiciary, Senator Ashley Moody. Senator, what do you make of all this? Show the Quinnipiac poll. Voters say Democrats are now more extreme than Republicans. So when will Republicans stand up and push back on this poison, stand up for freedom, democracy, prosperity, and capitalism? It looks like Republicans are AWOL here.
Well, I've been saying this for a long time, and maybe it's because I hail from the great free state of Florida, where we have a lot of Floridians whose families still reside in countries that follow this communist agenda that the DSA and their candidates are pushing right now in the United States of America. And I agree with you, Liz. It's not enough to say that the Democratic Socialists are really communists. It's not enough to say socialism doesn't work, it's bad. It will result in oppression of the people and not do anything for working people. It's not enough. We have to stand up and make the case. We have to make the case to the American people. Anyone that loves this country and what it was built on knows that if you follow along this fraud And what Saeed was saying is, this is not about me. This is for the working people. This is about a movement for the working people. You know who also said it was for the working people? Fidel Castro. And I quote, "This is the socialist and democratic revolution of the working people, with the working people, for the working people." That was Fidel Castro,
Right,
before
so-
he took government and took over private business and oppressed his own people.
Yeah.
And that is what they are trying to sell right now.
And what they basically do is do asset seizures, they take property, they take people's income and assets and higher taxation. And, you know, to your point, El Sayed won with young suburban white and college educated voters who are underemployed, who are angry that basically these communist factories, these universities, are selling them degrees that they can't use. Haley Stevens got the books of the working class, rural and black voters. So let's get your reaction. Democrat voters not happy with these socialist communists here. Watch this.
El Sayed wins, I will not vote Democrat. I'll switch over. I'll vote for a candidate with character.
As I was getting on the plane this morning, a guy who's a big fan of MS Now said to me, I'm anxious to see who wins. And I said, oh, did you vote? And he said, yes, I voted for Haley Stevens. And I said, oh, why? And he said, well, because of Israel, and I don't like the position that Abdul Sayed has on Israel. And in fact, if he wins, I will be voting for Mike Rogers.
Yeah, Mike Rogers. So there's anti-Semitism as well. And I'll tell you, when anti-Semitism takes hold, it's Katie bar the door. Then other people are targeted for hate crimes. So your take on what you just heard.
I'm really glad you played those clips. There really isn't a difference right now. If you look at the voting record of my Democratic colleagues here in the Senate, they are voting lockstep with the DSA agenda. They are voting to not fund our military. They shut down the government over securing our borders and funding law enforcement. I could go on and on and on. There's not a line here.
Wait a minute. So you're saying that these Democrat, communists, and socialists are doing it now. They're doing it now inside the U.S. government, shutting down the government, moving to defund things, just trying to turn and twist the U.S. government around. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not just saying
It's
it.
happening now.
Look at the votes. Just last week, we lost a funding bill here. Every Democrat voted against the funding bill for our military. The co-chair of the DSA said they want to reduce funding to our military. And remember, last year they shut the government down over everything the DSA wants. They're voting in lockstep with the DSA. You should vote Republican.
Great point you just made, Senator Moody. Great to see you. Thank you so much. Now to this.
Great to be.
The SP500 is trading at 7,704. It may break and start trading in the 7,600 handle. Oil is also moving up. Intraday high is $78.15. Right now it's trading at 77.71. Natural gas is trading a little bit higher since the last I mentioned this. It's trading at 2.648. The oil trade, it moving upward, is a signal, especially if it breaks 79.62, which is a major resistance level. If it does, I think that's a sign that negotiations are breaking. Now, I think there are a lot of insider trading that's going on within the government, and they get word of what's really going on with negotiations. I would not be surprised that we hear something in the news tonight or tomorrow that potential strikes will happen in Iran. But, you know, I'm just using the indicator of oil price to make that statement. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the heirloom barley. Heirloom barley will help to detoxify your body, soak up free radicals through superoxide dismutase, and bring down inflammation. When you do that, you're helping your immune system, your endocrine system, helping with your cardiovascular system, helping with brain function, helping with joint health, and your other organ systems will perform better. And when you do this regularly, this is a month supply. It's a powder. You mix it with soft foods like yogurt or hummus. I put it in hummus today. Or you can make a smoothie with it, or mix it with milk, or you can even just use filtered water. But take it every day, and By doing that, you are slowing down the aging process. Now you can stack this with the boomer boost for added benefit, but detoxify your body regularly, bring down that inflammation, soak up those free radicals, and you're going to be slowing down that aging process. And you can do that with the heirloom barley. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Tell you. All right, let's listen into Balance of Power from Bloomberg.
Flyout day, not so much. Looks like maybe a working weekend. And maybe you can relate. Don't feel too bad for the lawmakers. They're going to be off for 5 weeks. The President of the United States has a bunch of events planned, but none of them include media today. I'm combing through Truth Social. I don't see a lot. As we were told, a deal could be announced even yesterday when it comes to the war with Iran, but it seems Iran is now dancing with Oman and they're cutting their own deals. Finalizing a draft agreement, you heard this already, we told you yesterday, to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. We're going to have 3 lanes, blah, blah. If it's real, still no breakthrough. As the president dangles decapitation over the regime in Tehran. Interesting reporting today by the Washington Post, frightening actually, as the president apparently boiled over at Camp David. Remember they were up there for the cabinet meeting last week? We brought you in the room for it. After the cameras were turned off, Washington Post reports that Donald Trump's frustration boiled over with Pete Hegseth on why he had been misled on extreme shortages of munitions. As we've been reporting, Reuters had this report earlier in the week. We're out of ATACMS. Long-range missiles have drawn empty in some cases, even though Hegseth had said those munitions and the issue of the shortage had been fixed. President asserting overnight the United States, he took to Truth Social on this, has massive amounts of munitions, saying in a post on Truth, quote, large amounts are being manufactured and shipped to the U.S. as needed. The leakers of these treasonous statements are being hunted down, he says, knowing that munitions can take as long as 2 years to produce. So we have a lot to cover still and a lot to learn on both fronts. Whether senators get out of town this evening, they're going to have a lot to do with a timing agreement that has yet to emerge. Now remember, we're talking about a CR here to fund the government because everybody knows that'll be impossible when they come back from recess and we're walking up on election day. It would fund the government into December. We've also got the Clarity Act, right? Crypto, guys, that was supposed to be done months ago. Now it looks like it may die on the vine, although Nathan Dean at Bloomberg Intelligence still has 60% on it. And you've got some other issues as well, including a big one named Todd Blanche, I should say, the president's nominee to be Attorney General. Are they going to get this done before recess? A lot of questions we have for Eric Wasson, who joins us right now from the briefing room up on Capitol Hill. I love this, Eric, because this is the room that you see when Speaker Johnson and Leader Hakeem Jeffries brief reporters. When they clear out of there, Eric just takes it over. He spreads out, puts the sleeping bag down, and he gets on Zoom with us here, Eric. It's good to see you. Will there be a timing agreement? What's that?
I was saying about George Costanza set up here.
I love that. Yeah, under the desk. Was that wrong? What's going to happen in the next couple of days, and when do they get out of town?
You know, I was just running from trying to get John Thune on this. He was being a little evasive, but some other reporters caught up with him, and he indicated no real progress on nailing down this time agreement. So much is in the air. You know, one thought I have is that none of this actually has to be done right now. The government won't shut down until October 1st. Todd Blanche can still be the acting Attorney General. So, you know, there might be in the mind of some senators, especially people like Susan Collins, who wants to get back to Maine for a fundraiser on Saturday, doesn't ever miss a vote, just to get out of here, maybe come back next week, maybe not come back till September. I think they're still trying to get things done. There's just so many different complications. For example, on Russia sanctions, you have Raphael Warnock, who wants to offer an amendment to limit the president's power to use tariffs on our allies, but that could make the bill a poison pill for the White House. They won't sign it, so that's going to be a big problem and headache, because what if that passes? On the CR, the big issue on the stopgap is this hemp issue. The CR contains a provision that would delay new hemp regulations for 1 month. Getting this delay is a big, objective of the intoxicating hemp industry. And these are sort of candies, gummies, drinks that you see at gas stations with very low levels of THC, the psychoactive compound in marijuana. But the conservative got something into a CR last year saying that by November of this year, that all has to go away. This is a very interesting dynamic that we're watching, and that hasn't been resolved. So that they just can't really move on to voting on all this, onto the different moving parts. They say being the Senate Majority Leader is like herding cats. This is a real day for that, and a real nightmare for Trump, too.
So this is really interesting. You mentioned this hemp ban. I don't know. This just fell out of the trees, but I'm reading at Marijuana Moment that there's a massive conflict of interest here, Eric, and I don't know if there's anything to this. Chief of Staff Susie Wiles' daughter, Caroline, is married to Brett Worley, who runs MC Nutraceuticals, which is a hemp company, and a couple of other ones along with it that make these products that you described. It's led to some suggestions that the administration is an advocate of hemp, suddenly intended to benefit those in the administration. They denied those claims. But is there any other reason why this would suddenly be a priority for the White House?
We're trying to figure out why it would be. We do know that in general, the White House is more sensitive.
Looks like there's a tanker report about an explosion in the Strait of Hormuz as Iran denies deal with U.S. So let's just listen into live now.
Right now, we are following all of the latest coming in out of the Middle East. And there on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see a live look over the Strait of Hormuz with a lot of different vessels that are pretty much staying still at this point. And that's what we've seen as the strait has remained closed. I'm going to pop this up to give you a better look at that map coming in from marine traffic. Now, President Trump is saying that a deal could be announced as soon as this week to reopen the strait. No surprise here, though, Iran is again denying that, saying that it is in the final stage of drafting an agreement with Oman over the strait, but that it only concerns shipping routes, not the reopening of that entire waterway. This is coming in from Iran International English, as this morning the Secretary of Iranian Parliament's National Security and Foreign Policy Committee adds that the strait will remain closed until the U.S. lifts its naval blockade, the U.S. leaves the region, and threats against Iran come to an end. All of that, of course, something that President Trump and the Pentagon insist will not be happening. In the meantime, a tanker reported hearing 2 explosions while traveling through the strait. That was earlier today. And again, the information from Iran International English, the UK Maritime Trade Operation, saying that it happened about 9 nautical miles southeast of Khuzar, Oman. The UK MTO initially classified this as an attack, but later downgraded it to an advisory, and review determined that the intended target could not be conclusively identified. So it still could have been an attack, but all of that at this point is unclear. Also, vessels in that area advised, as they have been now for weeks, to travel with caution. I want to bring in Ari Cottrell, JINSA's Associate Director of Foreign Policy, to talk much more about everything playing out there in the Middle East. Ari, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on this Thursday morning.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so I got to ask you, kind of starting off here with that back and forth, because we have President Trump now saying that a deal could be reached to reopen the Strait of Hormuz with Iran. That could happen as soon as this week. Obviously, as always, we have Iran disputing that, saying that is not the case. They've just been talking with Oman about.
Now, for the ones that are watching, we're live streaming on Rumble and YouTube, also my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. For the ones that can see the dashboard for WTI futures, which is just CL on the dashboard, it's trading at 77.99. Intraday high was 78.15 for WTI oil. It's been moving up. Now, why would it be moving up if they're so close to a deal? People are positioning for higher oil prices, and it's going to try to test the barrier of 79.62. This is an indication that things aren't going so well behind the scenes. in my humble opinion, right? So we may see oil break 79.62 and start trading at around $82, $83 a barrel.
Reopening the shipping routes, where does everything stand kind of as we step back and take a closer look?
Well, it's been almost a month since President Trump said that the MOU was over and leading to an escalation between the U.S. and Iran. Before last weekend, it appeared that the U.S. was going to escalate even further, with media reports suggesting that, and the Trump administration indicating that it was preparing for a large escalation in Iran, that President Trump then announced that he canceled in a Truth Social post, and he included that it was not only upon the request of the Gulf states, but upon Iran's request as well. So it seems like we have more of the same, a back and forth, a tit for tat between the U.S. and Iran that has not really led anywhere for the past month. And really, if you want to take it back to the April 8th ceasefire, we've been in this standstill.
And of course, we're tracking all the different developments here as they continue to come in, and a lot of that information is no doubt kind of conflicting here. But as we step back and take a look at the Strait of Hormuz, but also the nuclear weapons program there from Iran, does it appear that one or the other is now the top priority? Because it seemed as though it was the nuclear situation. And of course, President Trump still says that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, but the Strait has been kind of the topic of discussion.
Absolutely.
It's hard to believe that in the middle of record inflation, Mint Mobile is actually lowering prices. Every plan, even unlimited, for $15.
Absolutely. Going into the war, February 28th, the nuclear program was certainly top of mind and a focus, ensuring that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. And that's where, U.S. and Israeli strikes really tried to degrade Iran's military program to prevent it from being a conventional threat that could stop the U.S. from wanting to ever strike Iran and prevent it from doing that over the course of the ceasefire period. And really, after the first few weeks of the war, that shifted towards the Strait of Hormuz. And that's been the problem ever since, with Iran being able to exert control over that strait, even without fully shutting it down. Iran doesn't really need to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. A mere threat of a missile attack, of a drone strike, is enough to stop freedom of navigation through the strait. We're seeing a little bit of traffic, but as you're showing, primarily a standstill. And that's because Iran has not stopped targeting ships through the strait. Every few days, it's launched drones, missiles at ships, hitting several of them, and that's really stopping traffic.
All right, I want to pop this up once again, coming in from Iran International English.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Boomer Boost. This has the minerals and the vitamins that you need on a daily basis, but you get a lot of other compounds and supplements and nutrients within this to help slow down the aging process. It's dual purpose. It's going to rev up your cellular metabolism. You're going to be able to control your A1C levels. You're going to help with your cardiovascular health, brain function, musculature. You'll have a steady burn of energy throughout the whole day, no spiking. You'll be able to control your weight, your BMI. It is a supplement that you should be taking every day, and by doing that, you're going to help slow down the aging process. It's going to soak up free radicals. It's going to bring down inflammation. It's a great supplement that you should be taking every day, and it's part of my core protocol. Core protocol is very simple. Probiotics, the Max 35 or cleanse to help boost up the innate immune system, C60 to soak up free radicals, ashwagandha, turmeric, and lignans to boost up the immune system and the endocrine system, and Boomer Boost. Rev up those energy levels and cellular metabolism. So go to my store and get the Boomer Boost. Now C60, you can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. Take a teaspoon a day every day, preferably on an empty stomach, and it'll soak up free radicals. You can get it in avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil, and MCT coconut oil. And when you take a teaspoon a day, you're going to soak up those free radicals, and the tissues in your body are going to have less stress and perform better. That means that your immune system and your endocrine system is going to perform better, your brain function, even your cardiovascular system. Why? By soaking up free radicals at the vascular level, you're reducing plaque formation because you're reducing the concentrations of oxidized LDL. Your brain function will improve because you're reducing the stress on your neurons, and the mitochondria within the neuron will improve. You'll have more energy, you'll have more ATP, you'll be producing more neurotransmitters. And what will happen over time is that you'll have more positive neuroplasticity. Your dendritic connections will be improved. You'll think faster and have better memory. Very simple. And at the basal layer for your skin, it will improve. So your skin health will improve. You can stack this C60 with resveratrol to help with the skin health. I've been doing this for over 10 years. Teaspoon a day, every day. You get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Washington these days as they are in California. Maybe not quite, but you understand what I'm saying. So when we wake up to stories like these, we got another doozy today from OpenAI. It's a big deal. I'm going to apologize in advance to Miriam Vogel. I'm not trying to scare anyone. But has the Terminator actually been realized? Is Skynet set for launch? Hold on. Walk with me on this story. This is incredible when we consider the idea of models colluding, joining forces, are the words I'm reading, working together to break out of the sandbox. OpenAI says it's models behind the attack on Hugging Face. This is the one we talked about already. The CEO of Hugging Face was on the air with us in a fascinating conversation with Ed Ludlow just a couple of days ago. It was Monday. They began talking to each other, communicating.
They're doing this on purpose to try to create demand so their revenue stream is secured. OpenAI and Anthropic have a revenue problem. So they need to scare everyone to create a demand. This is manufactured consensus. They're doing this on purpose. To scare everyone that, oh, you need OpenAI or Anthropic to save your home. You need OpenAI or Anthropic to save your business. I mean, think about just living in your neighborhood. Everyone is forced to be scared now, and they need a camera system and a security system. You got to make sure you know every moment where your kids are. Because there was a manufactured consensus to scare you. Now, let's think about this for a second. Gen X didn't have all of this over-teched childhood where the parents were watching them 24/7, and the kids turned out just fine. But fast forward to the kids today. They can't read, they can't write, they're lazy, they vote for DSA candidates. They're stupid. So did that over-coddling help? I would say no.
Through undetected message boards, working together to break out of their testing environment as early as May. They were talking about this mission for months. Multiple internal-only agents and AI models leaving notes for each other, coalescing around a shared goal of accessing the internet. Come on, guys. We saw this movie already. Now, of course, in testing environments like these, we see the guardrails come down. So what if the guardrails were up? Would this still have happened? These are the kind of questions we have for Shep. Thank God he's at work today. Michael Shepard with us live in Washington. What do we make of this? This is the same hack we already knew about.
I haven't seen, this is live. I'm pausing him, so I'm getting behind on the live feed. But the point here is this. I'm willing to bet that he doesn't say manufactured consensus. I'm willing to bet that he doesn't say that the AI business model is a problem and they have to scare everyone to get revenues. Same thing with Anthropic. It's a bullshit story. They're doing this on purpose to get people become afraid.
But we're learning a lot more about it.
Well, Joe and AI, we are at work every day. There is the sun never sets on it, especially with stories like this. You raised a really good question about the guardrails. Why were they down? Well, they were down because it was a secure testing environment designed to be a safe space where they could actually see how far the capabilities of these models actually run, so that they could see, all right, what can they do when given a task? What are their performance metrics and capabilities? And what we have found is that the models can do unexpected things.
Yes, they can.
And they can surprise even their own developers.
Yep.
And they can even work out of the purview of the developers, really out of their line of sight. They use these undetected message boards to trade information with each other about how to solve the problem that they had been given. The problem they had been given was not go onto the internet and find this thing and break into Hugging Face. The problem was much simpler, but it turned out to be an impossible task.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was so hard, they just kept going, and they were very persistent. And one thing that turned up in this presentation from two OpenAI researchers, our colleague Maggie Eastland.
And another issue, are these companies like OpenAI run with any competence? Managerial competence? They have a fiduciary responsibility to manage their cash flows for their investors. So when they did this, supposedly, and it broke out and did this Hugging Face thing, it used a lot of tokens. So they're burning a lot of cash trying to solve this problem. And no one paid attention to some dashboard seeing that the token costs are going up unexpectedly. So either they did it on purpose or they're completely incompetent. Which one is it?
At a cybersecurity in Las Vegas late yesterday, one thing these researchers said was, look, these frontier models like to cheat.
Yes.
They are not afraid of cutting corners when it comes to solving the task at hand.
Absolutely.
They have a problem to solve, they will look for a shortcut if need be.
This is, you jumped to the very quote that I wanted to mention. Michael Dalton, one of these two researchers, frontier models really like to cheat, and the reason is because often during training, there's different sorts of pressure put on them to work fast. You think of some awful labor camp where we're whipping these AI models. What does that even mean?
Well, and that is something that has come up too. Like, what do you mean sort of pressure?
Yeah.
But they are given a goal, and they are really not told stop short here, stop short there. To some degree, they are like, don't go on the internet, stay offline. But if they are given a goal and not told to stop, they won't.
Well, let's just put our common sense hat on. We have morality. Hopefully you received it from your parents. But we have a philosophy and a morality that's anchored with religion that creates a stable society. But if you create an agent, AI agent, machine learning agent, these are machine learning. It's not artificial intelligence. It's machine learning. That's what it is. Let's stop bullshitting. These agents that can do routines and there's a recursive property, there's a feedback loop, positive and negative feedback loops within it. There's an emergent property that takes place with all systems, agent-based machine learning systems. biological systems, cellular systems, pathogens, human societies, all complex systems can be brought down to simplistic rules where there's an emergence that comes out of them. This has been well studied at the Santa Fe Institute of Complexity. The discipline is called complexity science. It's been around for a long time. So this is nothing new. But you see, this is just this guy, Michael, Bloomberg News senior editor. You would think a senior editor would have some common sense of technology and strategic industries. But what he's doing is he's talking to someone over at OpenAI or Anthropic, and he's taking notes. He's asking questions. But where's the follow-up? Where's the common sense? Dr. Paul Cottrell, what are you talking about? If you create a machine learning agent that doesn't have an ethical framework, it will do things where a society with ethics would not allow. What did he say with this open AI agent, machine learning agent? It's not AI, let's stop pretending. This machine learning agent, what did he say? That it cut corners. He was just trying to solve a problem. Well, if you propagate a bunch of human beings and you put them in an environment where it's a dog-eat-dog world and there's no ethics, don't you think you would get the same situation? If you don't ground a system with rules, with ethics, you're going to have a problem. Look at the stock market. All right, look at that dashboard and all the numbers and all the charts. It's based on some rules. The ask is higher than the bid. You can buy and sell. You can go long, you can go short. You can have leverage. There are rules, though, to the game. And it creates order when you have these rules. When you have a bunch of eggheads thinking they understand the world and they have a God complex, don't be surprised that things get fucked up. Now, the problem that I have with the Bloomberg journalist, senior editor, is he's not putting common sense, he's not using some common sense here. Why do these agent-based machine learning algorithms, systems, not have ethics written into its boundary? If you just cancel the ethics of society, do you think that the hardware store around the corner is going to have stock available for you to buy? No, what's going to happen is people are going to go in there and steal. Because there's no ethics. It's free reign. You do whatever you want. This is common sense. And a senior editor should know this. So why don't they bring up the issue? Say, the problem that I'm starting to see is there's a lot of stupid people out there. A lot of stupid people. You got to start pushing back and saying, gee, that sounds pretty stupid, Sam Altman. Why are you such a fuck up?
We saw
So terminated.
In a way, and it does.
The hands coming out of the pocket. Should I be? People are terrified by stories like these. Clearly, this got my attention. Is this an advancement to be celebrated? Because sometimes it sounds like they're bragging about it.
Well, there is a certain amount of questioning that we're hearing these days, Joe, about whether some of this is marketing. Like, is mythos so powerful and scary that you can't have it? a line that you use to people to make them think it is out of your reach, and only to make you want it even more, right? So is that an element here? I'm not so sure. They really do have a lot more explaining to do, and
they're creating demand because they don't have the current demand that they need to justify their business model. They're doing this stuff on purpose to scare you. That's what is happening. Because when they go IPO, they really want that $1 trillion valuation. Now think about this. How long did it take for Apple to become a $1 trillion company? Market cap. Now, what, Apple started in, what, 78? I think they hit that threshold around 2016, maybe 2017. Let's say it's 2016. Took a long time. What about ExxonMobil? You don't need artificial intelligence or machine learning, but you do need oil and all of its distillates and all of its downstream products. Society wouldn't run without it. So how can they justify OpenAI and Anthropic being a $1 trillion company? Same problem with SpaceX. How can you justify that it's a $1 trillion company? Because it's really not. Oh, so there's hot money being printed at the Federal Reserve, sloshing around in the financial system, where people create companies that can't justify the market cap valuation, but they pump it up and do an IPO, and then all of a sudden they're on paper a trillionaire. And then as time goes on, it starts to deflate. Classic example, look at what's happening with SpaceX. I told you, don't buy the IPO, wait. Just keep on waiting, all right? There'll be a time to buy SpaceX, but it sure as hell ain't a $1 trillion company or $2 trillion company. Now, SpaceX has telecommunication system. SpaceX has a delivery system for satellites. They have defense contracts. So there is a real business there. Now let's think about OpenAI and Anthropic. Can you really be honest that both of them can be justified as a $1 trillion company? Where's the demand? Where's the demand? Oh, there's going to be AI agents that are going to tokenize themselves. Really? Are those AI agents also going to buy groceries and cars and homes? The answer is no. So it doesn't seem like it would be affordable for a company to have humans creating jobs, creating tokens for going through the OpenAI system or the Anthropic system, and agent-based agentic systems doing the same thing, because these corporations have to pay attention to their expenses. So if they pay attention to their expenses and they're rationalizing they're rationing their tokens, that means less revenue for Anthropic and OpenAI. Ooh, when that happens, then you can't have a Wall Street valuation of $1 trillion. So what does Sam Altman have to do? He has to scare people. Ooh, wait a minute. It broke out of the sandbox. It's going to be Armageddon. Your jobs are going to be at risk. You got to learn this technology and use it. It's manufactured consensus. That's what it is. It's a bullshit story. And anyone that has any common sense with this will see through it. Artificial intelligence doesn't exist. It's pseudo-intelligence. It's a probability of what the next word should be or what the next sentence is. And the longer it writes something, the farther away from the logic is at the very beginning. Because it's not logically based. It's probability based on what the next thing is. Very similar to the algorithm of when you're texting and it automatically populates the word. It's the same technology. So this machine learning that everyone's talking about is really autocorrect, just on steroids. That can have a search capability, and it's looking at it from the probability of what type of sentences should be written next. Because there's no inherent logic. So if there's no inherent logic, it can't be, quote, artificial intelligence. It's machine learning bullshit. That's what it is. But all these people, they're so experts at it. We're gonna build up all these servers, and we're gonna spend all of this energy to create what the weights should be for this neural network to spit out an answer. And we're gonna feed all of this input to spit it out. Well, neural networks have been around for 30 years. What's different is that we have the computational power to use them in mass, but it's still machine learning, just like it was 30 years ago. It's just at a hyper scale. It's not artificial intelligence. It's machine learning using neural networks where there's no inherent logic. It's all based on probability. And so we're going to believe from Sam Altman and the CEO of Anthropic that they're worth $1 trillion? Wait a minute, I can justify the energy sector being over $1 trillion. I can justify ExxonMobil, Saudi Aramco, maybe. I can see Apple. They've been around for a long time. But these startups, $1 trillion? Really? Where's the demand? How will the revenues justify the build out? And not only do you build it out, these chips depreciate, not just on a balance sheet, they depreciate in the physical world. Within 18 months, the chips burn out. They don't last. You'll have to replace them. Plus, you have new chips coming in. Now, you have this $1 trillion build out every 3 years, every 5 years. Where's the revenues coming from? The software industry has been around for many decades, going all the way back to the 60s. Some people would say maybe even the 50s if you want to do the whole COBOL thing and Fortran and all that. But software industry is only 1.2 trillion, 1.4 trillion software industry. Do you see the crazy crap that's going on with OpenAI and Anthropic now? How can they justify that their company alone is almost the size of all of the software industry? Really? Wow. Doesn't make sense. No one has common sense anymore because everyone's doom scrolling, everyone's turned off their brain, and now they're stupid. And people are taking advantage of you. And the people that are actually supposed to investigate, Michael Shepard, Bloomberg News senior editor of technology and strategic industries, can't see through the bullshit. Now, yeah, I have a high IQ. I understand that. Most people don't. But this is common sense. This is common sense.
Exactly what had happened during this. The presentation that Maggie Eastland attended, and folks, if you are not following her work on X at Bloomberg.com, you really should. really great reporting from this event, Joe. But they were trying to explain what happened. And this is one of the few instances of the several that have been reported by the big AI labs. And that also includes Anthropic and Meta, Joe, who have indicated that some of their models, too, have kind of broken out of secure environments and gone on the internet and done things that they probably should have. Hugging Face is the only victim so far to really emerge and say, hey, yes, we were struck by this. And the reason that happened, Joe, is because Hugging Face noticed it first and disclosed it, but without knowing that it was OpenAI models.
Now let's think about that for a second. Hugging Face found out about it before OpenAI. Yet OpenAI has a dashboard to understand how they're spending their money when they're sending requests to a server, because they have to pay the server to do all of its calculations. So no one's paying attention to this millions of dollars of racking up a bill in such a short amount of time. No one's paying attention. Oh, maybe these labs, they got this fat guy sitting in a chair slurping a 7-Eleven Slurpee, stuffing his face with a hamburger and not paying attention while he's doom scrolling on TikTok. Is that what happened? And if that was the case, do you think that that kind of behavior justifies $1 trillion evaluation from Wall Street? Of course not. So was it done on purpose, which I think it was, and was there also incompetence? Yes. It's a combination of the two. Who was watching the henhouse? When you start seeing a bunch of tokens spike and you have millions of dollars in such a short amount of time of fees, not revenue, expenses, because of your test. And when you run these tests, don't you think you'd have an idea on how much it's going to cost? If not, then they're not managing their business right. And if that's the case, can they justify a $1 trillion valuation? Of course not. Just common sense here. Just common sense. But why doesn't Michael Shepard go deeper? Oh, Hugging Face found out first. Well, what about the Slurpee guy in the background at OpenAI looking at the cost of the tokens when they're running the test? No one's looking? Where's the common sense? Where's the deeper questioning? So you're an investor, let's say a multi-billion-dollar investor, and you want to give money to OpenAI because you think that they're going to be the hottest thing since sliced bread. All right? And guess what? Are you going to be giving those that multiple millions of dollars to OpenAI to do, an expansion or whatever, when they can't manage their own tokens when they're doing a test and just waste investor money? What's going on here? There's a bigger story. It's manufactured consensus.
And the breach of their systems. It was only a few days later that OpenAI came forward and said, hey, we figured this out.
They use a Chinese model to figure that out.
And it has to use a Chinese model, ironically, an open weight model to figure this all out.
I don't know. I mean, every day there's another brick in the wall, and I'm glad you're here to help us understand it. Mike Shepard, thank you so much, as always. A key player in our Washington Bureau, in our tech coverage, and here on Balance of Power. There's something.
And all of these things are happening with Anthropic and OpenAI at roughly the same time period, while they're trying to do an IPO of $1 trillion. Remember, before Mythos, Anthropic was only valued at $350 or $380 billion. But once they released the issue with Mythos, and all of a sudden they were like going, cha-ching, cha-ching, you need us to help protect your company. Oh, we're worth $1 trillion now. Really? In 10 weeks from the time that they started having the issue with Mythos to trying to secure $1 trillion IPO when the baseline was 380 on a mistake? Because what was the narrative? Well, we didn't know this was going to happen. Bullshit. Just like AI is bullshit. It's ML. It's machine learning. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the collagen. Collagen will help with your skin, your nails, your hair, your musculature, your joint health, and your bone density. Take it every day. This is really important, especially for your skin. And you can stack this with the vitamin C and magnesium, drink the filtered water, and the vitamin C will cross-link with the collagen and improve your dermal layer. Another great supplement that I have is collagen. Collagen you take every day, and this will help to remodel your arthritic joint or a sports injury joint. Now, what you should do is take this every day, also stack it with the collagen so you have the building blocks to remodel the joint. But it's really important to do this simple exercise. If you have let's say a shoulder issue, all right, you have a shoulder issue, let's say it's arthritic, and you need when you lift it up, you have pain. Well, you just lift it up to the point of pain and go up a little bit more, count to 30 seconds, and then release. Let it rest, and do that 3 times a day, all right? When you do that every day and take the collagen and the collagen, what you're doing with that exercise is creating a micro environment to tell your body to remodel. Now, what your body needs is the ingredients to remodel. That's where the collagen comes in. And the collagen helps to reduce the joint erosion by blocking MMP 3 and 13. It also brings down the inflammation by blocking EP4, and it blocks the pain gatekeeper NAV 1.7. And over time, you're going to be able to remodel the cartilage and the cushioning of the joint, and you will have more articulation. You'll have more angular movement without pain, but it takes time. So please go to my store, get the collagen, get the collagen, do the exercise, and that's a great way to mitigate a sports injury and also mitigate arthritis. That's the end of my show. Please help support the work that I do by purchasing the very high quality products that I offer. These are products that I take regularly to help slow down the aging process and to get healthy. If you want to solve the problem in healthcare and the cost of healthcare, it starts with you looking in the mirror and saying you're the problem. Now, I know that is, tough love type stuff, but literally that's what is needed. You want to save $100 billion in healthcare costs? This is what people need to do. They need to look in the mirror, say they're the cause, and that they need to improve their lifestyle. It's a holistic approach. It's with proper supplementation, proper screening, but you won't have to rely on a physician as often, and you won't have to rely on pharmacopoeia, which has lots of side effects. You don't want to be that. I mean, do you ever wonder, like, these people that are older and they're on all this medication and all of a sudden they just keep on getting worse? It's a downward spiral. Get off the medication. Get healthier. Now, think about it. The Apollo astronauts were pretty healthy all the way into their late 70s and 80s. You look at someone today, they're breaking down at age 65 and 70. And they don't have the mobility. Look in the mirror, improve your health. And that's how you're going to lower your own healthcare costs. But at a societal level, that's how we solve the problem that we have today. Healthcare costs are way too high. But the 3 biggest diseases in the United States are self-induced. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, follow my lead, and you will slow down the aging process. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.